The life of every Disney princess. Ever since the beginning, Disney movies have starred princesses. Who is and isn't a Disney princess exactly is open to discussion, but there are some examples that are undebatable, and we're going to go over those today. Welcome to the Amagi. In today's video, we're going over the life of every Disney princess. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all our social media. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Snow White. Born as a princess by birth, Snow White lived with her royal family in a castle far away. But her mother died shortly after she was born. After some time, her father, the king, remarried a vain and cold-hearted queen. Not long after their marriage, Snow White's beloved father suspiciously died, leaving the young princess as an orphan. As a young child, Snow White's vain and wicked stepmother feared that one day Snow White's beauty would surpass her own. So she dressed Snow White in rags and forced her to work as a scullery maid to try to quench her growing beauty. Each day, the queen consulted her magic mirror, asking, "Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" As long as the mirror answered, "You are the fairest one of all," Snow White was safe from her stepmother's cruel jealousy. Snow White may have been a maid, but she never complained when she worked, and whenever she was sad, she would always hum a tune to cheer herself up, and her animal friends would visit. The people of the kingdom felt sorry for their princess when the evil queen made her a servant, but they could not rebel due to the queen's power. The evil queen, jealous of her stepdaughter's beauty, forces Snow White to work as a scullery servant in her castle. Even in rags and clogs, however, her beauty shines through, causing the queen to worry that Snow White's beauty may one day surpass her own. She has such vanity that she consults her magic mirror every day, ordering the slave within to reveal the name of the fairest in the land. Every day the spirit says that the queen is the fairest, and she is content until the mirror informs her that Snow White has finally become the fairest in the land. Outside, as Snow White works, she then tells a group of doves a secret about the well she is drawing water from, and tells them it's a wishing well, and then sings "I'm Wishing," attracting the attention of the prince, who is passing by. As she sings into the well, performing a duet with her echo, she's startled as the prince suddenly joins in. She runs indoors and watches from a balcony as he sings one song. The two are immediately infatuated with each other. Watching from above is the queen, who angrily closes the curtains of her window in jealousy. The queen summons her huntsman to her and orders him to kill Snow White. The queen asks him to bring her heart back in a special box as proof that he has succeeded in the task. The huntsman takes Snow White to a secluded glade, and checking that no one else is present, advances on the princess as she is helping a young bird return to its parents. Snow White sees the huntsman's shadow on the rock in front of her, turns around and screams in terror. However, the huntsman cannot bring himself to kill her upon seeing the beauty in a princess such as herself, and begs Snow White for forgiveness. He tells her of her stepmother, the queen's insane jealousy, and tells her to run away and never come back. She takes his advice and flees through the forest, and her fright is manifested in the surrounding plants. Branches suddenly resemble claw-like hands, and floating logs resemble crocodiles. Overcome by terror, she eventually collapses, sobbing. As light enters the forest, the woodland creatures cautiously approach Snow White while she cries, and she is comforted by them and befriends them. Together, they sing "With a Smile and a Song." No longer frightened, Snow White asks the animals if they know where she can stay. They lead her to the cottage of the 7 dwarfs. She enters and finds that no one is home. Noticing that the whole cottage is a complete mess, she cleans the house with the help of the animals. She hopes that its residents, whom she believes to be children due to the size of the furniture, will let her stay if she cleans up for them. At this point, she sings "Whistle While You Work." Later that evening, she and the animals go upstairs to find 7 little beds. Feeling sleepy, she falls asleep over 3 of them. The 7 dwarfs return home from a day's work at the dwarf's mine. They see light coming from the window of their cottage and smoke coming from its chimney. The dwarfs enter the house, creeping around as they search for the monster they believe has invaded their home. They hear a noise, some birds from the forest joking about, coming from upstairs, and after an unsuccessful attempt by Dopey to chase the thing down, they enter the bedroom together. The dwarfs approach the 3 beds that are being slept in and are about to strike when Doc removes the bed cover to reveal Snow White sleeping, causing them to hold their fire upon seeing her. They are all infatuated with her, but Grumpy grumbles about her unwelcome presence, waking her up. She is first startled by the dwarfs, but soon befriends them, guessing the names of Doc, Bashful, Sleepy, Sneezy, Happy, Dopey, and Grumpy because their names are carved on the beds. All of the dwarves, except for Grumpy, agree that Snow White is welcome to stay if she does the housework for them to keep her safe from her stepmother. A noise from downstairs reminds Snow White that she has left some soup boiling. She rushes downstairs and tells the dwarfs that it is almost ready and they will have time to wash. She asks the dwarfs to see their hands, and upon realizing that their hands are dirty, insists them to march straight outside and wash, otherwise she won't be able to give them anything to eat. The dwarfs reluctantly march outside and wash while singing Buddle Uddle Dum. They have just finished washing when Snow White calls to them that supper is ready. After supper, the dwarfs perform the silly song for Snow White, and she dances with Dopey, who reaches her height by standing on Sneezy's shoulders. She then repays them when she sings Someday My Prince Will Come as the dwarfs listen. The dwarfs then declare that Snow White will sleep upstairs and that the dwarfs will find somewhere to sleep downstairs. Before Snow White goes to sleep, she says her deep prayers, blessing the 7 little men for being so kind to her and wishing to make her dreams come true, as well as asking to make Grumpy like her. At the Queen's castle, meanwhile, the Queen, after being told by the magic mirror that Snow White still lives, descends into her laboratory and transforms into the witch. She prepares the poisoned apple, one bite of which will send its victim into the sleeping death, which can only be cured by love's first kiss. Believing the dwarfs will bury the princess alive once they discover her apparently dead, the witch leaves the castle and proceeds towards the dwarf's cottage. The next morning, Snow White kisses each dwarf goodbye as they leave for the mine. Before Grumpy leaves, being the last one to depart, he warns her not to let anyone or anything in the house. Touched that he cares despite his negative exterior, Snow White decides to bake a gooseberry pie for Grumpy with help from her animal friends. She's then startled by the appearance of an old peddler woman who is actually, unbeknownst to her, her wicked stepmother in disguise peering through her window. She offers Snow White the apple but is attacked by the woodland creatures who sense danger in her presence. The ever-sentimental Snow White shoos the animals away and takes the old woman inside for a drink of water, still unaware that it is her stepmother in disguise. Meanwhile, the animals rush off to fetch the dwarfs. Thankful towards Snow White for being so good to poor old Granny, the Queen tells her that the apple is no ordinary apple, but it is a magic wishing apple capable of making all of Snow White's wishes come true with a single bite. The Queen places the apple into Snow White's hands, and before taking a bite, Snow White wishes for the prince to carry her away to his castle, where they will live happily ever after. The Queen then continually insists her to take a bite before the wish grows cold. Snow White does so and soon falls to the floor into a sleeping death after feeling the poison's effects, the apple falling from her hands. As the Queen is leaving, she is seen by the dwarfs who chase her to a cliff, where she falls to her death, crushed by a boulder and eaten by vultures. The dwarfs find Snow White, and they and the animals grieve her death as they return home. In mourning, they hold a funeral for her at their cottage. Finding her so beautiful, even in death, they cannot find it in their hearts to bury her, and instead place her in a handmade coffin carved of glass and gold. As time goes by, the prince hears of this and rides to the clearing where her coffin has been placed. The dwarfs and forest animals make way for the prince to approach Snow White. He then gives the princess a kiss, a love's first kiss, which breaks the curse, reviving Snow White. Upon seeing the prince, she wakes up and extends her arms out to him as he scoops her up in his arms. The dwarves and the animals rejoice as the prince carries Snow White to his horse. She kisses each dwarf goodbye before leaving with the prince for his castle, where they live happily ever after. Cinderella. Cinderella was born to wealthy, unnamed parents who treated their daughter with great love. The family resided in a French chateau just beyond a small but powerful kingdom. Sometime during her childhood, Cinderella's mother tragically passed away, and as a result of believing his daughter needed a mother figure in her life, Cinderella's father remarried a woman named Lady Tremaine, who notably had 2 daughters of her own, both around Cinderella's age, Anastasia and Drizella. After the death of her father, Cinderella was under the control of Lady Tremaine, whose true colors finally surfaced, showing a cruel and cold-hearted woman. Her selfishness and vanity destroyed both the family fortune and left the once beautiful chateau in a state of disrepair. While pampering her own 2 daughters and spoiling them rotten, she raised Cinderella in abuse and virtual slavery. This was a result of being wickedly jealous of the young girl's natural beauty and charm, which she and her own daughters all lacked. This went on for many years, but Cinderella's personality remained sweet, humble, and kind. Lady Tremaine, her daughters, and their pet cat Lucifer abuse and mistreat Cinderella, ultimately forcing her to become a scullery maid in her own home. She is notable for being silenced repeatedly by Lady Tremaine, creating the assumption that Cinderella is expected to do chores without speaking out. Her only friends around the chateau are the mice, especially Jock and Gus, the birds, Bruno the dog, and Major the horse. One day, Cinderella receives an invitation to a royal ball at the king's palace. She immediately delivers it to her stepmother, who tells her she can go, provided she finishes all her chores and is able to find something suitable to wear. After thanking her stepmother, she goes back to her room where she shows the mice and birds a dress that belonged to her late birth mother. As of that moment, her most magical experience of all has begun. She is about to begin fixing her dress when she is unexpectedly called downstairs by her impatient, needy stepsisters. The mice and birds, feeling sorry for her, take it upon themselves to repair the dress for Cinderella. Jock and Gus find a sash that Anastasia doesn't want anymore, as well as some beads that Drizella threw out, and take them to help fix the dress. Later that night, Cinderella sees a carriage outside the chateau through a large window. She goes to inform her stepmother that a carriage has arrived to take them to the ball. When Lady Tremaine notices that Cinderella has not yet dressed for the event, Cinderella replies that she is not going, to which Lady Tremaine points out that there are other times Cinderella will be able to attend, while smiling wickedly about Cinderella not going to her own daughters, who return the gesture. Cinderella walks back to her room and looks out the castle's window, wondering what a royal ball would be like. Just then, her bird and mouse friends reveal a surprise. They had fixed the dress for her. She thanks them for showing how much they care for her, changes into the dress, and rushes downstairs to join her stepfamily. However, when they see Cinderella, Lady Tremaine compliments her dress and points out Drizella's beads. The stepsisters then fly into a rage in the belief that Cinderella stole their discarded items to use in her dress, and not caring that the dress had belonged to Cinderella's late mother, they furiously tear it apart until Lady Tremaine puts a stop to it and ushers them to get into the carriage, which they snootily do after ensuring their stepsister can't come with them now to the ball. Cinderella is left with her dress reduced to rags, as her stepmother wishes her good night before departing for the ball with her stepsisters. At that moment, Cinderella finally reaches her breaking point at having endured her stepfamily's abuse for too long, and the broken girl runs outside the garden and breaks down in tears with the mice, Bruno and Major, watching her in sadness. She throws herself onto a bench and begins sobbing at the apparent loss of her dreams, feeling unable to continue enduring the cruelty of her stepfamily through hope and optimism any longer. Shortly thereafter, the magical fairy godmother appears on a bench to comfort Cinderella, explaining that Cinderella's hope still reigns strong deep inside her, as she wouldn't have been able to appear otherwise. The fairy godmother then insists that Cinderella attends the ball and demonstrates her magical abilities as she transforms a pumpkin into a coach, mice into horses, Major into a coachman, and Bruno into a footman, before transforming Cinderella's ragged dress into a beautiful, sparkling ball gown, complete with glass slippers. The fairy godmother warns Cinderella that all her magic will be undone at the stroke of midnight. Cinderella thanks her, unimaginably grateful for the godmother's kindness, and quickly jumps into the coach and sets off for the ball, waving goodbye to the fairy godmother as she does. Cinderella arrives at the castle while the ball is still in procession. She walks upstairs to the castle's ballroom, where she attracts the attention of Prince Charming, who is enchanted by her sparkling appearance and walks over to her. He escorts her to the middle of the ballroom, and surrounded by other maidens and attendants, the two begin to waltz. The two then have some private time outside together, courtesy of the Grand Duke, during which they become completely enthralled with each other and are about to kiss. But then the clock begins to strike midnight, prompting Cinderella, who's lost track of time and has also not realized at this point that she's been dancing with the prince himself, to leave abruptly, realizing that the fairy godmother's magic is about to end, and she needs to flee before everything returns to normal in front of everyone at the castle. As she runs down the stairs, she inadvertently drops one of her two glass slippers. Nevertheless, she jumps into the coach and leaves the castle. At the clock's 12th strike, the spell breaks, reverting everything back to what it was. After running behind the bushes to hide from the palace guards, summoned by the Grand Duke, who gallop past the pumpkin, smashing it in the process, Cinderella, her dress reverted once again to the rags of her destroyed late mother's dress, apologizes to the mice, Major, and Bruno for forgetting the time before going over her wonderful time at the ball, including her dance with the prince. Just as she accepts that it has all ended, Jock and Gus point out a glass slipper, the only remaining object from the fairy godmother's magic, on her foot. Cinderella takes off the slipper and thanks her friends and her fairy godmother for everything. Meanwhile, at the castle, the king has ordered the Grand Duke to search all over the kingdom for whoever can fit the slipper, the only clue of the mysterious maiden. Back at Cinderella's chateau, Cinderella has resumed her duties as a maid. As she walks upstairs carrying breakfast for Anastasia and Drizella, she overhears Lady Tremaine telling Anastasia and Drizella about the news of the Duke's search for the girl who's lost a slipper at the ball last night, and with whom the princess is madly in love, causing Cinderella, upon realizing that the handsome man she danced with was Prince Charming, to become so distracted that she drops the breakfast tray in the process, angering her stepmother. As she obeys her stepmother and cleans up the mess, she overhears Lady Tremaine continuing to tell her daughters that the girl who can fit the slipper will be the prince's bride, making Cinderella smile dreamily, even when her stepsisters stack clothing in her arms, the sight of which makes them suspicious of her peculiar facial expression. Upon hearing that the two have to get dressed in preparation for the Duke's arrival, Cinderella decides that she too must get ready. She puts down the clothes and heads upstairs to her room, singing and humming the tune she and the prince had sung at the ball. Unknown to her, Lady Tremaine is spying on her dance-like movements and realizes Cinderella was the mysterious girl who danced with the prince all along. Jock and Gus see Lady Tremaine heading upstairs to the tower, and sensing the danger, rush to Cinderella's room to warn her, but Cinderella is too busy preparing herself to meet the Duke. By the time she sees them trying to warn her, she catches sight of Lady Tremaine at the door through a mirror. But it's too late, as the wicked stepmother slams the door shut and locks it. Having seen Lady Tremaine put the key into her pocket, Jacques and Gus decide to steal the key and take it to Cinderella's room to free her. A short time later, the Grand Duke and the Herald arrive at the chateau. While Cinderella sobs in front of the locked door, believing that her dreams of being reunited with the prince have been shattered forever, Jacques and Gus steal the key to her room from Lady Tremaine. Cinderella hears Jock and Gus panting up the stairs outside her room and looks through the keyhole to see that the two mice have finally made it to the top with the key in tow, filling her once again with relief and hope, but is again shocked when Lucifer ambushes and traps Gus inside a bowl along with the key. She pleads with Lucifer to let Gus go, but the stubborn cat refuses, knowing that he is buying time for the Grand Duke to leave and preventing Cinderella from trying on the slipper, as well as wanting to eat Gus as he has been trying to do throughout the movie. When the mice and the birds' attempts to make Lucifer release Gus fail, Cinderella, quickly realizing that Bruno may be the only one who can rid them of Lucifer, orders the birds to fetch the dog. Bruno quickly arrives and frightens the cat into jumping out of a window, getting rid of him for the time being. Now victorious, Jacques and Gus wedge the key through an opening between the door and the floor, allowing Cinderella to finally exit her room and head downstairs. Just as the Duke is about to leave, disgruntled and disgusted by Anastasia and Drizella's efforts to get the slipper to fit on their feet and nearly destroying it in the process, Cinderella calls out to him, much to her stepfamily's horror. Lady Tremaine initially tries to dismiss Cinderella as a maid, but the Duke rebuffs her as his orders were to have every maiden in the kingdom try on the slipper, and helps Cinderella onto a chair so that she can try it on. He calls for the herald to deliver the slipper, but Lady Tremaine, in one final desperate attempt to shatter Cinderella's dreams, trips him with her cane, sending the slipper flying and shattering it in front of the Duke and Cinderella. As the Duke reacts in horror and terror about the king's reaction, and it seeming like Lady Tremaine would keep Cinderella in her home forever, Cinderella reveals that she has the other slipper, which she pulls out from her apron, horrifying her stepmother and stepsisters, but filling the Duke again with joy and hope. He slides the slipper onto Cinderella's foot, and it fits perfectly. Cinderella, along with the mice, Bruno and Major, is taken to the castle, where she reunites with Prince Charming and becomes his bride and a princess. The King and Grand Duke happily celebrate their marriage as the newlyweds head downstairs to a carriage that will take them on their honeymoon. As Cinderella walks down the stairs with the prince, she drops her slipper once again, prompting her to go back for it. The king assists her in putting it back on, and Cinderella gives him a kiss on the head to thank him. Cinderella and the prince ride off in the carriage, and Cinderella waves goodbye to her mice friends, who wave back at her. As the carriage pulls away, Cinderella and the prince share another kiss, with the final words in the book below the illustration of the couple kissing reading, "And they lived happily ever after." Around a year after the events of the original movie, Jock and Gus set off to make a new book to narrate what happens after the ending of the previous story by stringing 3 segments of astounding stories together, making 3 separate stories that are titled Aim to Please, Tall Tale, and An Uncommon Romance. In the first story, Aim to Please, Cinderella and Prince Charming return home from their honeymoon, only to find that Charming and the King have to leave once again for royal affairs, leaving Cinderella in charge of a royal banquet that is to be held. Not knowing the first thing about organizing parties or the royal traditions, Cinderella struggles with her new life and tasks as royalty, and she ultimately decides to disregard the old traditions and set things anew, successfully throwing the party in her own unique style. In the second story, Tall Tale, Cinderella and the Grand Duke work together throughout the castle to prepare for a festival, while Jock feels guilt for his inability to assist her due to his size. Fairy Godmother, however, transforms Jock into a human by the name of Sir Hugh, and in this new guise he offers Cinderella assistance numerous times, only to fail abruptly when he does, and ultimately realizes he's better off as a mouse anyway. In the third and final story, called An Uncommon Romance, Anastasia falls in love with a local baker, much to the disgust and disapproval of Lady Tremaine and Drizella. Anastasia is told by her mother to never speak a single word to the baker again. Having been watching the whole time, Cinderella comes up with a plan to get her stepsister back with the baker by getting her mouse friends, including Jock and Gus, to distract him while the birds steal Anastasia's hat and fly off to the bakery, with the intention of having her run after them to get it back and reunite with the baker again. The attempt backfires when the mice run into Lucifer, their old nemesis, who gives chase, resulting in a startled horse kicking Anastasia into the baker's shop. Anastasia runs out, breaking down in tears, and retreats to a quiet area in the village. She is found and comforted by Cinderella, who offers to help her stepsister change for the better and win the baker's heart. In the end, not only does Anastasia blossom a romantic relationship with the baker, but a loving relationship between her and Cinderella is also formed, finally accepting each other as true sisters. Cinderella and Prince Charming are celebrating their first anniversary when Fairy Godmother accidentally loses her wand to Anastasia. She immediately takes it to Lady Tremaine and Drizella, who learn the power of the wand and how to wield it properly. After the Fairy Godmother is accidentally transformed into a statue, Lady Tremaine then reverses time to back before Cinderella tried on the slipper. By using magic, the slipper is able to fit Anastasia. Cinderella tries to convince Lady Tremaine that the slipper belongs to her by showing her that she has the other one. Instead, Lady Tremaine calls her night with Prince Charming nothing more than a dream and destroys the other slipper. Cinderella is left at the chateau while her stepmother and Lucifer make their way to the castle to meet her prince. Devastated and confused, Cinderella begins to attend to her normal duties, but regains her confidence and decides to meet with the prince herself, knowing he should recognize her when he sees her. Cinderella, Jock, Gus, and the two bluebirds sneak into the palace and begin their search. When she finally bumps into him, however, he fails to recognize her. Heartbroken, Cinderella cries at losing her former love until Jock and Gus arrive to expose Lady Tremaine's villainy. Upon finding out that Lady Tremaine used the wand to wipe Charming's memory of herself and make him believe Anastasia was the one he danced with, Cinderella forgets her sorrows and jumps into action. At Lady Tremaine's room, Jock and Gus sneak in to grab the wand. They are almost exposed by Lucifer until Cinderella enters disguised as a maid. Lady Tremaine discovers her anyway, and a chase follows. While Jock, Gus, and Cinderella evade Tremaine and the palace guards, the bluebirds rush to warn Charming of the danger, hoping to lure him to Cinderella's location for the spell to be broken. Meanwhile, Jock and Gus hand the wand over to Cinderella just as Charming arrives onto the scene, but before she could flip the spell, the guards arrest her. Lady Tremaine regains the wand and orders the guards to send Cinderella to the next ship leaving the kingdom to have her banished, although she narrowly manages to touch the prince's hand. Jock, Gus, and the bluebirds meet up with Prince Charming. They explain that his memory was altered, referring to Cinderella as Cinderella, and he rushes off on his horse to find her before the ship sets sail. He's too late, but narrowly manages to find himself on board, reintroducing himself to Cinderella, whom he calls Cinderella before she corrects him, and immediately takes advantage of the moment by proposing to the girl, which she gladly accepts. With their love having prevailed over Lady Tremaine's curse, the two return to the palace and explain the situation to the king and the Grand Duke. Infuriated, the king orders the Grand Duke and the guards to search the castle for the stepfamily to have them arrested, while other members of the castle prepare for a wedding, which is set to take place that same night. Cinderella is preparing for her wedding with the help of her animal companions. Lady Tremaine and Lucifer appear out of the shadows. Not only that, Tremaine soon summons Anastasia, who is revealed to have been magically transformed into an exact copy of Cinderella. Tremaine explains her plot to have Anastasia marry the prince under her guise. Seeing her apprehension, Cinderella makes an attempt to talk down her stepsister, but fearing Cinderella could conjure a change in heart in Anastasia, Tremaine sends her off to be killed by a human Lucifer. Still, Cinderella manages to escape her death and uses her time to make her way to the castle. Prince Charming and Cinderella are ready to marry, but to the real Cinderella's amazement, Anastasia refuses to marry the prince, having realized that she doesn't truly love him. An infuriated Lady Tremaine tries to turn Anastasia into a toad until Cinderella steps in to defend her, horrified by Tremaine's ruthlessness. Lady Tremaine then attempts to turn them both into toads, but Prince Charming intervenes by reflecting the magic with his sword, causing it to hit Drizella and Lady Tremaine instead. They are transformed into toads and fall into the palace's basement. Anastasia brings the real Cinderella and Charming together and transforms herself back to normal. Cinderella thanks Anastasia, and the two reconcile, putting their animosity firmly behind them. Together, they restore the fairy godmother, who gives Cinderella a brand new wedding attire. As they are unaware of the twist in time, Cinderella and Prince Charming decline the fairy's offer to restore the timeline, and the two finally tie the knot, and they live happily ever after again. Cinderella subsequently invites Anastasia to live in the palace and become her lady-in-waiting, which saves her from becoming a scullery maid like Lady Tremaine and Drizella. Sleeping Beauty. Aurora's parents named her after the Roman goddess of the dawn because she filled their lives with the radiant sunshine. Soon after she was born, she was presented to the kingdom at a christening, where she was betrothed to Prince Philip, the son of King Stephan's good friend King Hubert. Also invited were the three good fairies, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather, who bestow blessings on the newborn princess. Flora and Fauna give the infant princess the gifts of great beauty and song, respectively. However, before Merryweather has the opportunity to give her gift, the evil fairy Maleficent arrives. Angered because she wasn't invited to the ceremony, Maleficent puts a curse on baby Aurora. According to Maleficent, before the sun sets on Aurora's 16th birthday, she will prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and die. Maleficent disappears, leaving everyone in shock and horror at Aurora's doomed future. Though unable to lift the curse, Merryweather could soften it. Instead of death, she would alter the situation by placing Aurora into an enchanted sleep, which is the fateful prophecy she'll keep, only to be awakened by true love's kiss if this was to happen. Still fearful for the princess's safety, the three good fairies agree to hide the princess as a peasant for 16 years until the danger is past. They take the baby to a cottage in the forest and raise her, disguising themselves as her mortal aunts and renaming her Briar Rose. Meanwhile, Stephan has every spinning wheel in the kingdom destroyed in a desperate attempt to prevent the fulfillment of the curse to protect his daughter. On Aurora's 16th birthday, her aunts send her into the forest so that they can prepare her birthday party in secret. While Aurora is out, she dreams of meeting a handsome prince while singing Once Upon a Dream. First, she is singing to her forest friends, but she soon meets Prince Philip, who had followed her melodic voice. Not knowing who Philip is, or of their betrothal, she believes him to be a stranger and attempts to leave. However, she dances with him for a bit and ends up falling in love. When he asks for her name, she then leaves, realizing she isn't allowed to give her name to strangers. She does, however, tell him where she lives and asks him to meet her there that night. Briar Rose comes home to a splendid birthday party. She tells her aunts about the young man that she met, but gets confused when they are not happy for her. Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather reveal Briar Rose's true identity as Princess Aurora, as well as the fact that she was betrothed. The fairies sadly explain that she can never see the young man again, not knowing that he actually was her betrothed. Heartbroken, Aurora breaks into tears as she heads upstairs to weep on her bed. She doesn't speak again for the rest of the film. The fairies bring the upset Aurora back to her father's castle, but in disguise with a hood and cloak to avoid anyone seeing her until the proper time. Before she can see her parents, they take her to a room where they conjure a crown and place it on her head to help her realize her royal identity. However, a heartbroken Aurora begins to cry, and the fairies decide to leave her alone to grieve. While they are gone, Maleficent places the princess in a trance and leads her up an abandoned tower staircase. At the top floor of the empty room, Maleficent conjures a spinning wheel. The fairies realize that Aurora is in trouble and frantically run up the stairs to stop her, but before they can, Maleficent forces the girl to prick her finger on the spindle, invoking the curse. When the fairies arrive too late to find Aurora, Maleficent mocks them for their failed efforts of trying to stop her by revealing the sleeping princess before vanishing, cackling maniacally in triumph. Disappointed about their failure, the fairies place Aurora, now in an enchanted slumber, upon a bed at the top of the highest tower. Knowing that everyone would be heartbroken and disappointed if they discovered this news, the fairies decide to put everyone to sleep until Aurora awakens. While putting all the residents in the kingdom to sleep, the fairies discover that Philip had been the man that Aurora met after overhearing King Hubert speak of the prince meeting a peasant girl before he fell asleep with everyone else. So the fairies go to the cottage to get Philip, but then are prompted to go to the Forbidden Mountain, Maleficent's domain, after discovering that Maleficent has captured the prince. They rescue Philip from the dungeon and arm him with the Sword of Truth and the Shield of Virtue. After fending off Maleficent's minions, they finally exit the Forbidden Mountain and head for Stephan's castle. But Maleficent tries to prevent Philip from doing so by assaulting him with her magic in various ways, culminating it by creating a forest of thorns in front of the castle, though Philip manages to hack through the thorns with little effort. Angered at this, Maleficent suddenly appears in their way and transforms herself into a dragon. After defeating Maleficent in her dragon form with help from the fairies, Philip enters the castle, walks up the staircase to the tower room, where Aurora is still sleeping. He gives her a kiss, true love's kiss, which finally awakens Aurora and breaks the curse. Aurora smiles after she realizes that her betrothed and her love are the same person. One by one, all the royals in the kingdom also awaken from their slumber. The couple goes down to the ballroom to meet Aurora's parents and Philip's father, who are also awakened from their sleeping curse. She reunites with and hugs her parents and kisses Hubert on the cheek before sharing a dance with Philip. While the couple dances, Merryweather and Flora reignite their rivalry on their respective colors as the two bickering fairies relentlessly change the color on her dress with their magic. Aurora's ball gown keeps changing colors as she and Philip continue dancing and share another kiss, with the final words in the book below the illustration of the couple romantically kissing, and the color of Aurora's ball gown still changing between blue and pink, and they lived happily ever after. Ariel. Years before the events of the original film, Ariel and her sisters enjoy a music-filled life in Atlantica, with Triton and their mother, Queen Athena. The merpeople are shown relaxing in a lagoon above water, and Triton gives Athena a music box. Suddenly, a big pirate ship approaches. Everyone escapes except Athena, who is crushed by it when she tries to save the music box, and the pirates lose control and run it aground, breaking the keel and sinking it. Devastated by her death, Triton throws it into the ocean and bans music from the kingdom. 10 years later, Ariel and her sisters live under a strict routine maintained by their governess, Marina Del Rey, and her assistant, Benjamin. Marina hates being the girls' governess and longs to be Triton's attaché, a job currently filled by Sebastian. Ariel is frustrated by their current lifestyle, which brings her into conflict with her father. One day, Ariel encounters Flounder, whom she later follows to an underground music club. She's overjoyed by the presence of music and is shocked when she sees Sebastian performing there. When her presence is revealed, the entire band stops playing and hides, believing Ariel will tell her father about them. Ariel sings a song explaining her love of music and the remembrance of her mother, and she joins the club with an oath. Ariel returns to the palace, and the sisters confront her over her disappearance. She explains where she was, and the following night, all 7 girls go to the club to have fun. Marina secretly finds them, and she later reports their activities to Triton. Sebastian, Flounder, and the band are sent to jail, while Marina gets the job she wants. Triton confines his daughters to the palace, which results in Ariel asking him why music isn't allowed. Triton refuses to answer and shouts that he won't have music in his kingdom. Distraught, Ariel confronts Triton and says that Athena wouldn't have wanted music to be forbidden and angrily swims to the girls' bedroom, her saddened sisters soon following, while Marina, who is not the girls' governess anymore, is now Triton's new attaché. That night, she decides to leave Atlantica and frees the jailbirds. Sebastian leads them to a deserted place far from the palace where Ariel finds Athena's music box, as Sebastian hoped. Ariel and Sebastian decide to return to Atlantica to bring the music box to Triton, hoping it will change his mind as he has forgotten how to be happy after Athena's death. On the way back, Marina and her electric eels confront Ariel, Flounder, and Sebastian. Before music is restored back into the kingdom, the final battle begins when Marina bans Ariel from going back to Atlantica. Marina wants to stop them, so she will retain her position of power, and a struggle ensues. It ends when Marina barrels towards Sebastian, but Ariel pushes him away, getting hit in the process. Triton arrives in time to witness this, and he is remorseful for his actions. He sings the lyrics of Athena's song, and Ariel wakes up. The film ends with Triton restoring music to Atlantica and appointing Sebastian as the new court composer, much to everyone's glee with Ariel and Flounder. Everyone, including Ariel, Sebastian, Flounder, and 6 older sisters, rejoices except Marina, who has been sent to prison. The prequel series, which had debuted in 1992, takes place during an indeterminate time chronologically before the 1989 film, and revolves around Ariel's adventures as a 15 to 16-year-old mermaid living under the sea. Most of her adventures involve her meeting various creatures, getting into trouble, and usually getting out of it successfully. Her friends, Flounder and Sebastian, are also featured prominently. She is also shown to have a friend named Urchin, an orphan merboy. It also has her meeting Hans Christian Andersen, which also hints at both her possible birth year, i.e. during his lifetime, yet at least 16 years before the writing of The Little Mermaid, which, in a manner of speaking, makes him her creator, and the possible chronological events of the series, due to her being a direct influence on the creation of the story. She also gets along well with Sebastian's young crab scouts, as she is shown cradling one of them when they're tired in Tale of Two Crabs. Ariel continues to be fascinated with human objects in the series and is shown collecting them for her grotto. She gives them strange names, such as calling an ordinary telescope a thingamabob. Many episodes show her working to foil enemies who would do harm to Atlantica. Eric is sometimes shown, but she always just misses seeing him, preserving the continuity that she sees him first in the 1989 film. At the beginning of the film, Ariel and her fish friend Flounder swim through a shipwreck where they salvage human items. During their adventure, they are chased out of the sunken ship by a shark, but Ariel manages to outwit him. After escaping him, Ariel and Flounder swim up to the surface, where they speak to Scuttle to identify human objects. He misidentifies a fork as a dinglehopper used to straighten their hair, and a pipe as a snarfblatt used to make music. The identification of the latter reminds her of the concert she was supposed to be part of. Ariel hurries home to Triton and Sebastian, who both rebuke her for missing the concert. Hearing from Flounder about her encounter with a seagull, Triton reprimands Ariel for swimming up to the surface and demands that she never does so again, driving Ariel to tearfully swim off to her secret grotto. There, Ariel's collection of human objects is kept, hidden away from the other merpeople. She feels that collecting them isn't enough, and gets more curious about the human world, even expressing her desire to actually live in it. As Sebastian tries to talk Ariel out of her obsession, the mermaid spots a ship passing above. Curious, she quickly swims to the surface and towards it. Among the humans aboard, Ariel's attention is drawn to a male human named Eric. Just then, a storm moves in and destroys the ship. Ariel looks around for Eric and finds him floating unconscious in the sea. She saves him from drowning and takes his body to shore, where Eric starts to breathe again. Ariel sings to Eric as he steadily regains his consciousness. Eric's manservant Grimsby suddenly arrives in search of the prince, though he fails to notice Ariel. As Eric is taken into care, Ariel watches on, even more determined to accomplish her dreams of living alongside humanity. Back at Atlantica, Ariel's sisters hear her humming dreamily, causing them to realize she has fallen in love. Ariel comes up with a plan to somehow see Eric again, but Sebastian tries to talk her out of it, telling her how life under the sea is better than the world up above through the song Under the Sea. Flounder arrives and takes Ariel away to show her a surprise at her grotto, the statue of Prince Eric that he somehow salvaged from the wrecked ship. Unfortunately, King Triton soon appears, having learned from Sebastian, when his anxiety gets the best of him, that Ariel had rescued a human from drowning, and he berates her for breaking his rules of association with humans, though Ariel replies that Eric would have died if she hadn't saved him, and he shouldn't be so quick to judge him. After Triton once again lectures Ariel on how bad humans are, she declares that she loves Eric and doesn't care if they are different species. Shocked and enraged at this display of blasphemy from his youngest daughter, Triton loses his temper and in a blind rage proceeds to destroy all the human objects in the grotto with his trident, including the statue of Eric. Devastated, Ariel breaks down in tears and an ashamed Triton leaves while regretting what he has done. Sebastian, who has accompanied him, tries to console Ariel, only for her to tell him to leave her alone. After Sebastian and Flounder exit, Flotsam and Jetsam appear to convince Ariel to see their mistress, Ursula, who may have the power to make her dream come true. She, after initially attempting to refuse, reluctantly follows them to Ursula's lair, while Sebastian and Flounder follow her. At the fortress, Ursula, who knows that Ariel is in love with a human through spying on her via Flotsam and Jetsam, makes a proposition. In exchange for her voice, Ariel will become a human for 3 days, during which she must get a kiss of true love from Eric before the sun sets on the 3rd day. Should she succeed, she will remain human permanently. Should she fail, she will turn back into a mermaid and belong to Ursula forever. A desperate Ariel accepts the deal and signs a contract conjured by Ursula. Her voice is then sealed into a seashell on Ursula's necklace. Ariel is then turned into a human and helped back to the surface by Flounder and Sebastian due to having lost the ability to swim and breathe in water. At the shore, Sebastian goes into a nervous panic over the predicament and begins to trot home to seek help from the king. Ariel pleads for Sebastian to stay, giving him the most pleading look she can muster without her voice to talk him out of it, and out of sympathy, he agrees in a reluctant way. Scuttle provides some clothing for Ariel in the meantime in the form of an old sail and rigging rope, just as they are discovered by Eric's dog Max, who leads his master to them. Eric faintly recognizes Ariel, but doesn't believe her to be the girl who rescued him from the shipwreck due to her inability to speak. Nevertheless, he takes her to his castle, where Ariel is given a bath and proper clothing. At dinner, Ariel notices a fork and uses it to comb her hair, leaving Eric and his servants dumbfounded. Ariel then notices Grimsby's pipe and tries to use it as a musical instrument, covering Grimsby with soot. Despite Ariel's initial embarrassment, Eric finds her antics funny. Carlotta even notices that this is the first time Eric has smiled in quite some time, much to Ariel's delight. Eric then invites Ariel on a tour of the kingdom, which she accepts. During their outing, Sebastian, Flounder, and Scuttle anxiously watch on, awaiting the kiss. Ariel is more preoccupied with taking in the atmosphere of the human world. She even learns how to dance and ride a carriage. That evening, she and Eric go out for a boat ride in a lagoon. In hopes of initiating a kiss, Scuttle tries to provide some romantic stimulation. However, his terrible squawking, mistaken for singing, prompts Sebastian to lead some animals of the lagoon to create a more fitting mood with his song, Kiss the Girl. Sebastian's plan seems to have a positive effect on Ariel and Eric as they steadily draw closer to each other. But before they can kiss, Flotsam and Jetsam purposely tip the boat over by order of Ursula, who's been watching Ariel and Eric's development from her fortress. This ruins the moment, thus ending Ariel and Eric's date. The next day, which is the third and last of Ariel's human days, Scuttle delivers the news that Eric is getting hitched. Believing herself to be the girl in question, Ariel excitedly runs downstairs, only to see Eric with a dark-haired girl named Vanessa, whom he intends to marry. Devastated, Ariel breaks down in tears and runs off. As the wedding ship departs with Eric aboard, Ariel is left at the port to mourn her losses as Sebastian and Flounder do the same. Meanwhile, Scuttle discovers that Vanessa is actually Ursula in disguise and flies back to warn Ariel. Determined to save both herself and Eric, Ariel swims to the wedding ship with help from Flounder, while Sebastian returns to Atlantica to receive help from King Triton. Scuttle, meanwhile, rallies the lagoon animals to stall the wedding by assaulting Vanessa. Eventually, Ursula's necklace is destroyed, releasing Ariel's voice and freeing Eric from his trance. The two embrace each other as Eric finally realizes that Ariel is the girl who rescued him all along. Before they can kiss, however, the sun sets and Ariel turns back into a mermaid. Vanessa transforms back into Ursula, takes Ariel as her prisoner, and dives back into the sea with her. As Ursula thinks of her next move, Triton, having been alerted by Sebastian, confronts her and orders her to release Ariel, which she refuses. Ariel apologizes to Triton as he attempts to destroy Ursula's contract, to no avail. Ursula proceeds to wither the princess and turn her into a polyp like all her other victims, proclaiming the contract to be legal, binding, and completely unbreakable, but offers her freedom should Triton be willing to take her place. Triton accepts and overwrites Ariel's signature on the contract with his own, and though Ariel is released, she is forced to watch as her father is withered and transformed into a polyp faster than when Ursula tried to do it to her, having sadistically slowed the transformation on Ariel to torture Triton into surrendering himself to save his daughter. Ursula then takes his crown and trident, becoming Queen of the Seas. Finally, Ariel realizes that she had manipulated her into obtaining her father's power and furiously tries to fight her off, but she's no match for the empowered Sea Witch. Eric intervenes to help her, striking Ursula with a harpoon. She prepares to destroy him with the trident, but Ariel pulls on her hair just as it shoots, causing the shot to miss Eric and hit Flotsam and Jetsam instead, killing them. After Ursula briefly mourns her pet's loss, she enlarges herself as an even eviler, nastier, monstrous version of herself. Ariel and Eric try to escape, but then face a towering, gigantic Ursula. She declares herself as ruler of the ocean, who has the power to control the waves and creates a rainstorm in a whirlpool. Ariel is separated from Eric, and Ursula causes her to become trapped at the bottom of the whirlpool. She aims the trident at Ariel and fires bolts of pure destruction, who barely manages to avoid each time. Finally, just as Ursula prepares to use the trident to vaporize her with an unavoidable blast, and taunting that she will never get to be with Eric, he plunges the splintered bow of one of the shipwrecks that have surfaced as a result of the whirlpool through her abdomen, killing her and saving Ariel just in the nick of time. With Ursula defeated, her spells upon the unfortunate merpeople who made deals with her and failed to uphold them are broken, including the spell cast upon Triton, who transforms back into a merman. Eric manages to swim to shore at the surface, breaking down out of exhaustion as a saddened Ariel watches on a nearby rock. Triton and Sebastian look on from a distance, Triton finally softening up toward humans upon realizing Eric risked his own life to save Ariel. Knowing the love between them is pure and true, and despite their differences as species, Triton uses the power of the trident to permanently transform Ariel into a human, granting his daughter her wish and allowing her to be with the one she loves at long last. After the transformation, she walks up to the shore where she is happily reunited with Eric as he embraces her and they share their first kiss. Soon, they have their wedding on the wedding ship, attended by his loyal subjects on board and her family and friends in the sea around the ship. She silently bids farewell to Scuttle and Flounder and reconciles with Triton by giving him a heartwarming hug and telling him that she loves him before happily sailing away with Eric. Triton then casts a beautiful rainbow over the sky to wish the couple well as they start their new future together. Due to Ariel's courage in the earlier sacrifices, Triton understands that not all humans are bad and accepts Eric, her new husband, as his new son-in-law. In the 2000 direct-to-video sequel, Ariel serves as the deuteragonist. It is shown that she has given birth to a daughter named Melody, the new protagonist, prior to the start of the film. When we first see her playing with the beautiful newborn Melody, many toys of Flounder, Sebastian, and other fish can be seen in the room, showing that she misses her old friends and family with how long she's been human thanks to Triton and living happily with Eric. When Melody's safety is threatened by a sea witch named Morgana, Ursula's younger sister, seeking revenge for her sister's demise, Ariel and Eric decide they must keep Melody away from the sea, and to this effect they build a large wall separating the castle from it. It remains like this for Melody's first 12 years of her life until her 12th birthday. Ariel also leaves the locket Triton gave Melody on her christening day with him to have released into the ocean to sink to where it would never be found, while also knowing that this may be the last time she would see her father while he sent out his royal guards to hunt down Morgana and bring her to justice. As a consequence, this also meant Ariel couldn't visit her ancestral home, making her miss Triton and her sisters deeply, but only when alone so Melody doesn't learn the truth of her mermaid heritage. Melody's love of the sea proves too strong, however, especially after finding her locket while out swimming beyond the seawall and confronting her mother over it after Sebastian ends up ruining her birthday party, humiliating her, and when she falls into Morgana's clutches. Ariel is forced to temporarily resume her mermaid form in order to rescue and save Melody from Morgana's scheme, with Triton using his trident to revert the spell that turned Ariel human originally, returning her to her old mermaid body so that she could return home to Atlantica after so long. In this time, Ariel briefly returns to her grotto as seen in the first film and studies the objects, which we are left to presume survived Triton's anger in the first film, and keeps looking for Melody. This features Ariel becoming an overprotective parent for Melody, effectively taking over the role of Triton in the first film. She apologizes to Melody by the end of the film for her overprotectiveness, as she realizes it was for the best that Melody now knew about her true heritage. Ariel is the first and only Disney princess to date to become a mother. Belle is a beautiful young woman living in a small, unnamed village in France. She first appears at the beginning of the film, after the prologue, as she emerges out of the cottage she lives in and heads to a bookstore in the village, aware that the villagers are noting her peculiarity and how she doesn't fit in with the rest of them due to her love of books and withdrawn nature. At the bookstore, Belle returns a book she has borrowed and takes the one she perceives as her favorite. While heading back home to the cottage, she is pursued by a conceited, arrogant, muscle-headed hunter named Gaston, who eventually stands in her way. Gaston takes the book from Belle, drops it into a mud puddle, and tells Belle to get herself out of reading and pay more attention to more important things like him. Just then, an explosion comes out from the basement of her cottage, prompting Belle to run back home. Descending into the basement and coughing her way in, Belle finds her father Maurice, who is about to give up on his latest contraption that he has built. Belle faithfully tells her father how she has believed he will get the machine working, win first prize at the fair, and become a world-famous inventor. Inspired by his daughter's beliefs, Maurice reworks on the machine, and once he thinks he is done fixing it, he gives it a test run. To both Belle and her father's surprise, the test run goes successfully. Belle waves goodbye to her father and wishes him luck as Maurice, riding on their horse Philippe, goes off to the fair with the invention. The following day, Belle is happily reading when she hears a knock on the door. She uses the periscope only to find that Gaston is on the porch, much to her dismay, but nevertheless lets him in. Gaston then dirties Belle's book for the second time and reveals that he wants to make her his little wife and the mother of 6 or 7 handsome little boys. Belle is disgusted by the idea and slips away from Gaston, who continues to approach her. As Gaston has Belle cornered at the door and is about to plant a kiss on her, Belle opens the door, causing Gaston to fall into a large mud pond outside. After a furious and humiliated Gaston leaves the cottage, Belle goes outside to feed the chickens, shocked in disbelief at how Gaston has asked her to marry him. Not wanting to be the wife of that boorish, brainless man, she runs off into an open field where Philippe finds her, still hitched to the trailer carrying Maurice's invention, but without Maurice. Seeing Philippe without her father, Belle pleads for him to take her to where her father is after unhitching him from the trailer. Belle rides Philippe to a mysterious castle in the possibility of finding her father. She finds her father locked away in a dungeon and begs the master of the castle to free him due to his poor health, offering her own freedom in exchange for her father's over the latter's protests. When the master agrees on the condition that she has to stay with him forever, she asks the master to step into the light, revealing himself to be a hideous beast. Although Belle is terrified by the beast's visage, and Maurice pleads for her to reconsider, not wanting to lose her and becoming the beast's prisoner in his place, she promises to remain as the castle's prisoner, and the beast fulfills his end of the bargain by immediately releasing and sending Maurice back to the village in an enchanted palanquin. The beast is deeply moved by her beauty and affection towards her father, and can't help but feel touched by her boldness and bravery, as well as feeling some remorse for not allowing Belle to say her goodbyes to her father, whom she may not see again. The beast then shows Belle to her room, where she is initially terrified by the decor and the gargoyles. He allows her to go about the castle, but warns her not to go into his lair, the West Wing, which he cryptically labels as forbidden. When the Beast brings Belle to her room, he orders her to join him for dinner before slamming the door shut and storming off. Belle throws herself onto her bed and breaks down in tears over being separated from her father forever and trapped in the scary castle by the Beast. Later, Belle is visited by Mrs. Potts and Chip. She is shocked and surprised that a teapot and a teacup are alive. The enchantress who turned the prince into a beast also transformed his servants into household objects. And she backs into a wardrobe who is also alive. She accepts tea from Mrs. Potts, and after the teapot and the teacup leave, the wardrobe decides upon a dress for Belle to wear for her upcoming dinner with the Beast. But Belle declines just as Cogsworth, the head servant who was turned into a mantel clock, arrives to inform her that dinner is ready. The Beast is enraged upon learning from Cogsworth that Belle isn't joining him for dinner, storms over to Belle's room and bangs on the door, ordering her to come out to dinner. The two then have a heated shouting match, which results in the Beast finally granting her wish to be left alone again. Back in his lair, the Beast is shocked to find Belle still grudges him for his mistreatment of her and Maurice, causing him to doubt if he will ever break the spell. Meanwhile, a little later, Belle, feeling hungry, emerges from her room and makes her way to the castle's kitchen where she meets Cogsworth, his assistant Lumiere, and Mrs. Potts, who all agree to feed Belle despite their master's protests and entertain her with a marvelous musical number. After the dinner show, Belle applauds the entertainers and servers for putting on a spectacular performance. Having figured out that the castle is enchanted and wanting to see more of the castle, Belle asks Cogsworth to show her around. Belle comes across a staircase leading to the West Wing during the tour, but Cogsworth and Lumiere stop her and coerce her from going into the room she is forbidden to step into by showing her their library. However, her curiosity of the West Wing gets the better of her. Taking advantage of a brief distraction from the two servants, Belle enters the room and discovers it's beaten down, ransacked, and sickly. There, she sees a torn picture of a young man and a glowing rose. She takes the glass off the rose and tries to touch it. Just then, however, the Beast arrives and is furious at Belle for disobeying him. Belle tries apologizing, but the Beast screams at her to get out while destroying some of his own furniture in the process. Terrified, as well as having had enough of the Beast's ferocious temper in the castle itself, Belle escapes the castle, rushing past Cogsworth and Lumiere, and runs away. When the Beast calms down, he realizes his mistake too late and hangs his head in guilt and shame. In the woods, she and Philippe encounter a pack of frightening and savage wolves who chase after her and the horse. The wolves quickly catch up and knock Belle off of Philippe, while Philippe gets his reins wrapped around a tree branch, trapping him. Belle takes a tree branch to use as a weapon to defend herself and protect Philippe, but the wolves bite it in half when she attempts to hit them, rendering her helpless and defenseless in no time. Just as she is about to meet her apparent demise, the Beast intervenes and attacks the wolves, rescuing Belle and forcing the animals to retreat after flinging one of them, possibly the alpha, into a tree hard enough to knock it out, terrifying the other wolves into fleeing in fear. However, a wolf managed to injure him in the process before they flee in terror of his wrath. Coming to realize that the Beast has saved her life, Belle chooses to help the Beast, who's collapsed from exhaustion and his wounds, back to the castle over running away and leaving him in the woods to suffer. While she tends to the Beast's wounds, the two then get into another heated argument about who is at fault, including Belle ignoring the Beast's orders of not going into the West Wing, with Belle winning the argument by ordering him to control his temper, overcoming her fears and conquering his ferocious temper. She then thanks the Beast for saving her life, to which the Beast, realizing the good deed he has done while noticing her kindness, starts feeling good inside himself. As a token of his appreciation, the Beast, at Lumiere's suggestion, shows Belle the castle's enormous library, which strikes her interest so much that he gives it to her as a gift. In return, Belle helps him act more like a gentleman, and the two eventually form a healthy relationship, bonding over suppers, reading, and playful outings in the snow. Over time, the Beast falls deeply in love with her but fears that she will never love him in return. On a special night, however, an evening date is conceived, and the two eventually fall in love, though neither express their feelings verbally. After a waltz in the grand ballroom, Belle expresses the longing for her father and wishes for a way to see him once more. The Beast tells her that there is a way and shows Belle the magic mirror he had used previously, which is capable of showing anything the user wishes to see. Belle asks the mirror to show her father, and it reveals Maurice to be lost and sick in the woods trying to find his way back to the Beast's castle, apparently dying, a sight that shocks and worries her. With no choice, the Beast grants Belle freedom for the safety of her father. As a way to remember him, he hands her the mirror, which she accepts before thanking him for his kind gesture and departing in haste, changing back into her civilian clothes from her ball gown and riding away on Philippe as the Beast lets out a mournful howl as he watches her depart. After returning to the village with her rescued father and nursing him back to good health, Monsieur d'Arc, the head of a mental asylum, arrives to apprehend Maurice because of his claims about the Beast. It's soon revealed that Gaston was behind the asylum's arrival in hopes of forcing Belle to marry him in exchange for her father's freedom. Belle refuses and Gaston goes ahead with taking Maurice to the asylum. Thinking fast, Belle fetches the mirror and begs for it to show her the beast, then turns the mirror to the villagers to reveal his existence, proving Maurice's sanity. Unfortunately, as she assures the intimidated crowd that the beast isn't dangerous, Gaston senses Belle's romantic feelings for the creature and mocks her for being in love with a monster, to which Belle angrily retorts by labeling Gaston as the real monster, making him snap in a furious rage. Out of spite and jealousy, Gaston snatches the mirror from Belle, declaring that she is just as crazy as her father, convinces the villagers that the beast is a threat, and rallies a mob to attack the beast. Shocked, Belle tries to stop Gaston from going through with his plans, but he perceives that she is against him and has her and Maurice locked in their cellar to prevent them from warning the beast. After the mob's departure, Chip, who stowed away in Belle's satchel, uses Maurice's woodcutting invention to free them, allowing them to rush to the castle on Philippe. Belle arrives at the castle while Gaston takes on the beast and attempts to stop Gaston from hurting the beast. The beast, seeing Belle return, summons up the strength to fight back while Belle rushes into the castle and up the stairs. Arriving at the balcony, she calls to the beast and reaches out for him to take her hand. Just as the beast takes hold of Belle's hand and they embrace each other, a jealous Gaston stabs the beast in the back, causing the beast to jerk backward in pain, which then causes Gaston to lose his balance and fall to his death. Belle manages to grab hold of the beast and pull him up onto the balcony. The beast smiles at seeing Belle, who ensures all will be well with their reunion at hand. Unfortunately, the weak beast can only express gratitude over seeing Belle one last time before he dies in her arms, succumbing to his wounds. Belle begs him not to leave her, and sobbing over the beast's dead body, admits her love for him mere seconds before the last petal falls from the enchanted rose. As Belle continues sobbing over the loss of her love, shimmering beams of light fall onto the beast. The beast's body then begins to float in the air as enshrouded in a fog. Belle watches mysteriously as the beast's forepaws, hindpaws, and furry head respectively transform back into hands, feet, and the head of a prince. The prince then turns to Belle, who initially looks at him skeptically, but then recognizes him from the torn portrait's blue eyes. The prince and Belle share their first kiss, a kiss of true love, which subsequently breaks the additional spell placed on the castle and its inhabitants. The dark, scary castle is restored to its original shining state, and all the prince's servants are transformed back into humans, and the black forest surrounding the castle is transformed back into the beautiful forest it was before. The film ends with Belle and the prince dancing in the ballroom with her father and his servants watching happily. A stained glass window of her and the prince is also depicted on the castle. A midquel taking place during the winter segment of Beauty and the Beast, this is the story of Belle's attempt to bring back to the castle the one ceremony that the beast hates most: Christmas. At the point the movie is supposed to take place, Belle still considered herself a prisoner in the castle and wasn't truly friends with the beast at that point, though she had begun to accept him. This takes place not too long after she was saved from the wolves, and after the beast gave her the library as a gift. She had started to warm up to the beast a little and was more willing to reach out. Belle is first seen walking through the castle in a pleasant enough mood when she runs into Chip, Lumiere, Cogsworth, and Mrs. Potts. Belle asks Chip about today, and he doesn't know. She informs him and the others that it's the day before Christmas, to which Lumiere quickly cuts off before encouraging her to go out onto the castle grounds. At Chip's suggestion, Belle decides to go ice skating. After grabbing a pair of ice skates and a coat from the rack, she heads outside, where she finds the beast just walking around. She bids him a good morning, which causes him to lose balance on the ice and fall. Belle goes to check on him, and the two get into an awkward conversation about him slipping. After putting on her skates, Belle begins skating, inviting the beast to join her. The beast is reluctant at first, but Belle shows him the basic steps of skating, and eventually he starts trying. Belle watches as the beast gets better at skating, much to her amusement. With his improvement, the two started skating together. Things seem to go well until interference from Fife causes them to slide into the snow after he grabs the beast's cape. Belle and the beast emerge from the snow, and Belle cheerfully makes a Christmas angel. She shows it to the beast, but he sees his own monstrous shape in the snow, gets enraged by it, and storms off in a fury. As he goes, Belle doubts if she should keep trying to reach him, as it seems he is now worse than he was before, though Mrs. Potts tells her not to lose heart. Later, Belle walks with Chip through the halls and asks him about the beast's grumpy disposition. She is surprised when Chip tells her that the beast is always that way, even at Christmas. She's even more surprised when Chip asks her about Christmas, telling her about the great traditions that occur on the holiday. One tradition she mentions, presents, gets Chip excited, and she tells him that everyone receives a present on Christmas, including the beast. Chip asks Belle what she plans to give the beast, and she doesn't really know him well enough to know what he would want. At Chip's suggestion, Belle decides to give the beast a handmade storybook. As she makes it, she hopes that her story will help the beast overcome his sorrows and pains, and hopefully they will understand each other better. After she completes the story, she picks up Chip, confident that the beast will like his gift, and assures him that they will have Christmas in the castle. Later, Belle is washing dishes with the enchanted objects in the kitchen, where Cogsworth immediately rejects the notion of having Christmas due to the beast forbidding it. Belle responds, saying Christmas can't be forbidden by anyone. Cogsworth tells her that Christmas is a painful reminder of the beast's past, and that bringing it back would only torture him even more, but Belle believes that it would actually do him some good. Cogsworth continues to reject, but Belle, Lumiere, Mrs. Potts, and Chip bring up the Christmas feast, with Belle mentioning cranberry sauce. Eventually, Cogsworth agrees, and Belle suggests decorating the castle. Lumiere tells her that he knows someone who can help. With Lumiere and Chip in hand, Belle travels up one of the castle towers to the attic. There, she and the two are greeted by a series of enchanted Christmas decorations led by a Christmas angel named Angelique. After some flirting, Lumiere introduces her to Belle as the castle decorator. He then tells her about their plans for a Christmas celebration, but Angelique refuses, not wanting to get disappointed again. Belle pleads with her because they need her help to decorate the castle before Christmas, but Angelique still refuses, saying that nothing will change, but Belle believes it will. After several attempts to get the beast to agree, the beast finally approves of the idea and allows Belle to prepare for Christmas, though he still bears a grudge, for Christmas is the day the enchantress casts the spell on him and the castle residents. Belle goes out into the woods with advice from Forte to get a suitable tree for Christmas, but she falls into thin ice and almost drowns. Fortunately, she is rescued by the beast, who's enraged at her because Forte told him earlier that she was trying to escape from him again. Belle is then thrown into the dungeon to rot by an angry beast who accuses her of betrayal. Cold and demotivated, Belle was almost about to break down into sadness until the beast's servants, including Angelique, visit her in the dungeon to comfort her, while they sing a song to cheer her up. The beast then finds the book that Belle had written for him earlier in the West Wing and decides to set Belle free, and they both continue to prepare for Christmas. But Forte doesn't give up there, even going as far as to attempt to bring the whole castle down with Beethoven's Symphony No. 5 in order to prevent the spell from breaking, as it can't if everyone is dead. Fortunately, the beast stops him in time by crashing his keyboard to pieces. Sadly, the beast mourns the loss of his old friend, and Belle comforts him. Later, Belle, Beast, and the castle servants proceed with Christmas celebrations just as planned, much to Belle's happiness. The viewers are soon taken back to the actual Christmas taking place, and Belle is presented with a gift from her husband, a rose. In the next movie, Belle is the only human character. She meets 3 new enchanted object friends named Webster, Crane, and LaPlume, and is about to solve problems in all 4 segments. The film serves as a sequel to The Enchanted Christmas, taking place before Gaston's death. Because the segments of the movie were originally intended to be used for a TV series, Belle had a slightly darker complexion than usual. Only this time, she is shown to be very different from whom she was later in the chronological story. She is more naive, stricter, and still defiant of the beast's rules, while being easily brought down by the things that go wrong in the castle. In the first segment, The Perfect Word, a falling out between Belle and the beast leads to the banishment of the aforementioned servants, Webster, Crane, and LaPlume, forcing Belle to rush out and rescue them. In the next segment, Fifi's Folly, it is Lumiere's anniversary with Fifi, yet he doesn't know the proper way to confess how he truly feels. Belle assists him by taking the role of Fifi and practicing what he's going to do for their date. Fifi sees the two and believes that Lumiere is leaving her for Belle. Eventually, all is straightened out. In Mrs. Potts' party, Belle strives to cheer up a depressed Mrs. Potts, whom she has notably come to look at as a motherly figure, though the rivalry between Lumiere and Cogsworth causes trouble. This segment was also included in Belle's Tales of Friendship. In the 4th and final segment, A Broken Wing, Belle finds a wounded bird and takes it in. She spends most of her time hiding it from the beast originally until he grows to like it. After a while, another problem brews as the bird is healthy once more, but Beast wants to keep it for its singing. Belle convinces him to let it free. In the end, they become closer and their intense romance buds anew. Jasmine. Jasmine is the daughter of the Sultan of Agrabah and his late wife, residing in the kingdom's lavish palace alongside her father and loyal pet tiger, Raja, whom she found several years before the events of the film. She believed him to be a spiritual gift from her mother, who would tell her stories about the star tiger named Raja. It is revealed in the book, Tales from Agrabah, that whenever Jasmine would long for her mother, she would sit on her balcony and stargaze for a period of time. Because of her status as a princess, Jasmine was unfortunately forbidden to ever leave the palace walls, spending her life sheltered within the confines of the royal home. She often felt suffocated by the laws of her kingdom, which restricted her from socializing with her subjects and forced her to constantly meet suitors to possibly arrange marriages. This situation ultimately prevented Jasmine from making any connections, as she never had any true friends aside from Rajah, and left her with the desire to see the world and experience life outside of being a sheltered princess, which would eventually result in meeting Aladdin. By law, Jasmine must be married to a prince by her next birthday, which is in 3 more days. The Sultan is angered and frustrated when she rejects the various suitors that approach her, even going so far as to allow Rajah to attack them. She is unwilling to marry any of the princes her father suggests, as she proclaims that if she decides to marry, it will be for love rather than for wealth, power, and tradition. She also alludes that suitors see her as a mere prize to be won, a man's possession, rather than their equal lover. Jasmine continues with the distress that she's never had any friends nor has even been outside the palace walls, believing she should be allowed the chance to experience life before being forced into marriage. Though the Sultan shows sympathy, he explains that he simply wants to ensure that Jasmine is provided for after he passes, though this is not enough to sway Jasmine's opinions. To escape her plight, Jasmine runs away from home while disguised as a peasant, doing so in the dead of night, despite an attempt by Rajah to stop her from sneaking out of a concern for her. Having never been outside the palace before, she inadvertently gets into trouble when she gives an apple to a young boy without paying for it. Before the merchant can punish her by amputating her hand, a street urchin named Aladdin quickly intervenes and saves her by claiming that Jasmine is his mentally ill sister. Jasmine plays along, pretending that she believes Abu to be the Sultan and that a camel is her doctor. Aladdin leads Jasmine to his home, where they talk and continuously connect. Aladdin reveals his wish to escape the struggles of being a street rat, while Jasmine wishes for freedom. They both come to realize that they have a lot in common by feeling trapped in the life they were born into. Jasmine and Aladdin begin to develop romantic feelings for each other and lean to share a kiss, but the royal guards led by Rasul suddenly arrive. They try to escape but are surrounded, eventually leading to Aladdin's arrest. Jasmine reveals herself to the guards as the princess and demands that they release Aladdin. Rasul explains that he can't, as his orders come from Jafar, not Jasmine's father, and must be taken up with him to secure Aladdin's release. When Jasmine angrily confronts Jafar upon returning to the palace, Jafar claims that Aladdin was charged with kidnapping the princess. Jasmine explains that she wasn't kidnapped, but willingly ran away, only for Jafar to lie, declaring that Aladdin cannot be released on account that his sentence has already been carried out, death by beheading, meaning he's been executed. Shaken, a saddened and furious Jasmine leaves the room and mourns the loss of her only friend, feeling responsible for his death and didn't even know his name. Upon noticing his daughter's depressed state, the Sultan comforts Jasmine and learns the story of Aladdin and her outing. Jafar is promptly chastised over the matter, but Jasmine still holds a grudge against the vizier, swearing to get rid of him once she becomes queen. Unbeknownst to Jasmine, Aladdin is alive and was sent to the Cave of Wonders to retrieve a lamp by orders of a disguised Jafar. Aladdin ends up trapped within the cave during the mission with the lamp, and subsequently releases a genie and becomes his master. After Aladdin's wish to become a prince is granted by the genie, he parades through the streets of Agrabah under the guise of Prince Ali Ababwa. She initially believes him to be just another arrogant suitor and shows no interest in him. After hearing Prince Ali speak to the Sultan about his intentions to win Jasmine, she becomes disgusted with Ali's suggestion that she is only a prize and refuses to meet with him, telling off Ali, her father, and Jafar before storming back to her room. That night, Ali visits Jasmine on her balcony and makes an unsuccessful attempt to woo her, prompting the frustrated Jasmine to tell him to jump off the balcony. Ali complies and surprises her with a magic carpet. Jasmine finally begins to warm up to Ali, seeing that he is actually interested in getting to know her when he expressed she is right that she should be free to make her own choice as a person, but immediately deduces that Ali is the boy from the marketplace when he asks her if she trusts him. Confident in her theory, Jasmine accepts Ali's proposal to go for a magic carpet ride, during which the two fall in love. After the carpet takes the two to watch some fireworks in China, Jasmine tricks Ali into revealing the truth. She is at first angered with his lies, feeling demeaned, but Ali claims that he sometimes dresses up as a commoner to escape the pressures of palace life, which she relates to, softening her attitude and prompting her to forgive him. Jasmine is then taken back to the palace, where she and Ali share their first kiss, cementing their romantic relationship. In her bedroom, Jasmine blissfully contemplates her growing affections for Ali, just when her father arrives and claims to have chosen a husband for her, Jafar. A disgusted Jasmine refuses, telling her father that she's chosen Ali, though Jafar claims Prince Ali left. Just then, Ali arrives and accuses Jafar of attempted murder. Jafar scoffs at the accusations and the Sultan suspiciously agrees, much to Jasmine's confusion. Prince Ali suddenly grabs Jafar's snake staff and destroys it. He then reveals that Jafar has been controlling the Sultan with it. With Jafar revealed to be a traitor, he is confronted by Jasmine, Ali, the Sultan, and the guards, though he manages to escape. The Sultan was initially distraught at the situation, but quickly perks up upon realizing that Jasmine has finally chosen her suitor in Ali. The Sultan gives the couple his blessings and informs them that they will be married as soon as possible, also revealing that Ali will then become the next Sultan once they are wed. Unknown to either the Sultan or Jasmine, however, Ali was disturbed by the news, feeling undeserving of such power and Jasmine's love. The following day, the Sultan announces Ali and Jasmine's engagement in front of the palace. Jasmine is delighted to have her engagement announced, as she is happy to have found someone who truly loves her. She watches from behind the curtains as her father gives his speech and soon takes note of Ali's arrival by preparing him to make his appearance to the crowd. Just then, Jafar arrives and takes control of the kingdom, having stolen control of the lamp. Though her father cowers in fear, Jasmine refuses to obey Jafar's commands as Sultan, prompting him to use his next wish to become the most powerful sorcerer in the world. He then uses his new abilities to forcefully have the two former rulers bow to him. Once Ali rushes in to protect Jasmine, Jafar sadistically reveals the supposed prince as a fraud. Aladdin struggles to explain the truth to a confused Jasmine, having made an attempt to do so earlier, but Jafar separates the two, sending Aladdin to freeze to death at the ends of the earth, while Jasmine and the Sultan are left to suffer his wrath in a dystopian Agrabah. In the palace, Jasmine has been relegated to serve as Jafar's chained slave. She is forced to watch her father be tortured by Iago, but Jafar eventually adheres to her plea to spare him. While admiring Jasmine's beauty, Jafar proposes to have the princess become his queen. She hotly refuses, soaking the tyrant with a glass of wine and angering him to the point of near physical abuse. Instead, Jafar decides to use his final wish to have Jasmine fall desperately in love with him, much to her horror. The genie tries to explain that his magic cannot be used to make people fall in love, but the impatient Jafar refuses to listen, confronting his slave. Meanwhile, Jasmine spots Aladdin in the distance, alive and plotting to steal back the lamp. To help him do so, Jasmine manipulates Jafar into believing she's fallen madly in love with him, and seductively keeps his attention away from the lurking Aladdin. Iago notices this and tries to alert Jafar, but Abu stops him. When their scuffle briefly grabs Jafar's attention, Jasmine, out of desperation, turns him back to her with a kiss, which shocks and disgusts Aladdin, Abu, and even Iago. Once Jasmine and Jafar break the kiss, Jafar spots Aladdin's reflection in Jasmine's tiara and immediately attacks. A battle follows, and as Aladdin and Jafar confront one another, Jasmine defends her lover and attacks Jafar, only to be quickly overpowered by him. She gets back on her feet and goes for the lamp, only to be imprisoned in a giant hourglass by Jafar. With sand slowly filling the glass, Jafar uses Jasmine's oncoming death to distract Aladdin, who simultaneously tries to retrieve the lamp and save Jasmine. Aladdin ultimately manages to defeat Jafar by tricking him into using his last wish to become a genie and imprisoning him within his own lamp, thus saving the kingdom and freeing Jasmine and the Sultan. With peace restored, Aladdin apologizes for his lies, though Jasmine ultimately forgives him as she knows why he did it, grieving over the fact that they can't be together because of the law. The genie, however, urges Aladdin to use his last wish to regain his princely status. Aladdin declines this, however, and instead uses the final wish to set the genie free. Believing Aladdin has proven his worth by saving the kingdom, despite not being a prince, the Sultan decides to abolish the law, declaring the princess is free to marry whomever she deems worthy. Jasmine immediately chooses Aladdin, showing that she truly loves him. After seeing the genie off, a celebration is held in Jasmine and Aladdin's honor. In the first direct-to-video sequel, The Return of Jafar, Jasmine begins to question her choice in Aladdin, wondering if he was trustworthy enough after defending Iago, Jafar's former pet parrot who had terrorized her father. She quickly gets over these questions with Iago's help when he reminds her of how much she loves Aladdin, and using reverse psychology and calling her bluff in the song Forget About Love. Jasmine apologizes to Iago soon after when he suggests Aladdin and the Sultan go for a carpet ride together, which is in fact a trap, and her kindness almost prompts Iago into a confession, but Jafar scares him into silence before Iago can say anything further. She's later captured by Jafar, who magically impersonates her in an attempt to have Aladdin killed off by framing him for the Sultan's murder and having him executed by Rasul via beheading. It seems to be primarily her disappointment and anger at Iago, which finally prompts him to help free Genie, much to her and her father's surprise and realization that he's still on their side and is fully counting on him. Jasmine accepts Iago as a friend after he rescued everyone and showed full trust by clearing him and explaining to Aladdin what he did for them, and after he helps defeat Jafar for good. At the end of the film, Jasmine goes with Aladdin to see the world. In the series, Jasmine aids Aladdin, Abu, Carpet, Iago, and the genie in their adventures, often proving herself to be a valuable aid in their adventures and not just a damsel in distress. She's shown to have excellent fighting skills, possibly learned by adventuring with Aladdin. She also has several episodes, including Garden of Evil, Forget Me Lots, Do the Rat Thing, The Secret of Dagger Rock, and Sand Switch, in which her personality, skill, and intelligence are focused on. Of all the members of the group, Jasmine has made the most daring sacrifices, often giving up her freedom to save her loved ones or even complete strangers. She once commented on this in the episode Bad Mood Rising, telling Aladdin, "I was raised a princess, Aladdin, and a princess knows the needs of the people outweighs her own." A good example would be in The Ethereal, when she sacrificed herself to save a boy named Tonti, convincing said envoy into calling off her attack on Agrabah and reviving Jasmine. However, when scorned or threatened, Jasmine can become quite enraged at her offender, including Aladdin. The series also focuses on Aladdin and Jasmine's growing romantic relationship. The two are currently engaged and continue to let their relationship grow and develop as they become closer and their love grows stronger before they are ready for marriage. Aladdin and Jasmine are best friends throughout the series and often serve as each other's confidants whenever the other is troubled or uncertain. However, they aren't without their own issues, as the couple also deals with regular problems such as arguments between them. Jasmine often finds herself annoyed with Aladdin for his occasional ego, or when Aladdin is mad at Jasmine for her stubbornness and at times refusal to listen, but they both accept each other's flaws and work through their problems together. Both Aladdin and Jasmine continue to grow significantly with each other by their side, but they often find their love tested and having to face a few obstacles that threaten to keep them apart. Jasmine often finds herself facing off against romantic rivals, from the former street rat turned sand witch, Sadira, to the wicked sea sorceress, Saline, who both try to steal Aladdin away from her and attempt to break off their relationship. The attempts are foiled, however, as Aladdin and Jasmine have proven time and time again that they only love each other and no one else. Aladdin and Jasmine's love is shown and proven to be incredibly strong on various occasions, where they are both willing to do whatever it takes to protect each other whenever they see the other in times of danger. Examples include when Jasmine was turned into a humanoid snake creature by Mirage in an attempt to destroy their love by convincing Jasmine that Aladdin only loved her for her beauty. Mirage's plot almost succeeded, since due to their now different species, Jasmine could no longer be with Aladdin. However, Aladdin willingly gives up his humanity and becomes one himself just so he could be with Jasmine forever, proving Aladdin truly loves Jasmine for who she is and not just simply for her beauty. Finally, in the third direct-to-video movie, Aladdin and the King of Thieves, she and Aladdin are finally about to be wed when their wedding is interrupted by the 40 thieves. During the fight, Jasmine personally knocks one of the thieves out cold with a single punch, before angrily telling him that was for ruining my wedding. After learning what they were after, Aladdin finds out from the oracle that his father, Cassim, is still alive. Jasmine convinces him to seek out his father and that their wedding can be delayed a little longer. While he is away, Jasmine grows worried and the genie cheers her up by dressing her in bridal outfits and comically posing as many iconic celebrities and movie characters, one of which Robin Williams himself played the role of. When Aladdin returns with Cassim, she and the Sultan take an immediate liking to him. However, he later tries to steal the oracle and is put in prison. Aladdin helps him escape but comes back to face his punishment. Jasmine and the genie convince the Sultan that he helped his father out of love. At that moment, Iago, who is with Cassim, returns, telling them that Cassim has been captured by Saluk and the remaining thieves. Jasmine goes with Aladdin to rescue his father, and afterward, they return for their wedding, which Cassim attends from the shadows. They ride on the carpet, waving goodbye to the merchant from the first film and Iago and Cassim as they ride off. The two then kiss passionately. Pocahontas. Pocahontas is first seen atop a waterfall when she is summoned by her best friend Nakoma that her beloved father, Chief Powhatan, has returned. It is revealed that she has been having an unusual dream and does not understand what it means. Nakoma asks if she's figured it out, and when Pocahontas answers in the negative, she counsels her to speak with Powhatan, who has recently returned from the war. At the village, she meets with him and learns that Kocoum, one of his finest and fiercest warriors, has asked to marry her. As a gift, he gives her her late mother's necklace, which her mother had worn at their wedding. She doesn't feel that this is the right path for her, but Powhatan feels that Kocoum would be a fine husband for her, as he is steady and serious, as well as brave, loyal, strong, and protective. After hearing this, Pocahontas travels to Grandmother Willow in order to gain some advice. After telling Grandmother Willow about her dream and Powhatan's plans for her arranged marriage to Kocoum, Grandmother Willow tells her that her dream is pointing her down her own path. When she asks how to find her path, Grandmother Willow teaches her to listen to the spirits of the earth by listening with her heart. She does so, and after hearing the wind tell her about the arrival of strange clouds, is able to spot the ship carrying the Europeans. To her, its sails resemble clouds. Pocahontas later encounters one of the settlers, John Smith. At first, she can't understand him, but somehow, after possibly listening with her heart, she was able to. Over time, they get to know each other, asking all sorts of questions about each other's people, lives, and different worlds. However, the conversation goes sour when he unintentionally reveals his prejudices about Native Americans. She explains the beauty and importance of nature and respecting the earth through the song Colors of the Wind. This causes him to see the ill of his thoughts and change his ways, and they begin to strongly fall romantically in love with each other. However, after hearing drums, she is forced to return to the village. Later, while picking corn with Nakoma, Pocahontas meets Smith again. After swearing Nakoma to secrecy, she takes him out to the woods to meet Grandmother Willow. When he reveals that the settlers had come looking for gold, Pocahontas reveals that there is none in the area. When other settlers come looking for him, he is forced to leave, but he and Pocahontas agree to meet that night at Grandmother Willow's glade. After he leaves, she worries about her actions. Grandmother Willow reminds her of her dream, and she begins to suspect that it is pointing her towards Smith. Upon returning to the village, Pocahontas discovers that warriors from the neighboring villages have arrived and are planning to fight the settlers. That night, despite Nakoma's protests, Pocahontas sneaks off to meet Smith. They reveal that their respective people are planning for war. She asks him to come to her village and speak with Powhatan in an attempt to avoid fighting. He is reluctant at first, but agrees after some advice from Grandmother Willow. When Kocoum, who had been warned about Pocahontas by Nakoma, suddenly stumbles upon her and Smith kissing, he becomes enraged and attacks him. Before she can break them up, Thomas, who had been sent to find John, shoots and kills Kocoum to protect him. As Kocoum falls, he grabs hold of Pocahontas' necklace and it shatters into pieces. Enraged, she charges at Thomas, but Smith stops her, saying it won't help. He takes the blame, is taken prisoner by the Powhatan men who were alerted by the shot from Thomas's gun, and sentenced to die at sunrise. When Kocoum's corpse is carried back to the village, Powhatan scolds Pocahontas for disobeying his orders not to leave it, shaming him and her foolishness leading to Kocoum being killed. As John is taken away, Nakoma approaches her and she tells her that Kocoum was only trying to protect himself. Nakoma apologizes for her actions and she was worried that she was trying to do the right thing by admitting that she sent Kocoum after her. She brings Pocahontas to the tent where Smith is held, and she tells the two warriors guarding it that Pocahontas wants to see the eyes of Smith, and they agree, telling her to be quick and let her in. She apologizes to Smith before leaving, while he vows to be with her forever. After Miko gives Pocahontas Smith's compass, which she recognizes as the spinning arrow from her dream, she realizes that she must stop the execution that will lead to war between the Native Americans and the settlers. She runs to where it will take place, calling out to the forces of nature to help her reach them in time. She reaches Smith just in time to throw herself over him and save him from being killed by Powhatan, who is going to be his executioner and murderer, and also tells off everyone on how they had been led by the path of hatred. She tells her father that this is the path she chooses, and what would his be if they choose to fight. Touched by Pocahontas' love and wisdom, Powhatan then comes to his senses, puts a ceasefire on their fight, and releases John. When the enraged Governor Ratcliffe rejects the offer of peace Powhatan offers by sparing and releasing Smith, he shoots at him, only for Smith to push him out of the way and take the bullet himself. Soon after, a wounded John asks Pocahontas to come with him to England, but she explains that her place is in Virginia with her people. To comfort him, she tells him that no matter what happens, I'll always be with you forever. They passionately kiss and the men carry him onto the ship. As it is leaving, she runs out as fast as she can to a cliff overlooking the ocean. Smith waves goodbye in the Powhatan fashion, and she does so the same way as she showed him to do earlier when they first met as the ship sails away. Several years after the original film, Pocahontas has been mourning Smith's apparent death in England. She eventually decides to move on and buries his compass, which he gave her before going back to England, in the snow. Unknown to her, his death is part of a plot by Ratcliffe to manipulate England into a war with the Native Americans. Later on, Pocahontas has a run-in with an English diplomat named John Rolfe, who has recently sailed to Virginia. They do not get along at first, with her disliking his interference in a near skirmish between the Powhatan and the English, while he dislikes her for rebuking him for said interference. He later overhears of her role in stopping the war and mistakenly assumes her to be the chief rather than the young woman he just met. Later that night, Rolfe appears at Pocahontas' village with a gift for her, but is astonished when he learns her identity. He reveals that Powhatan must come to England to meet with King James, otherwise he will allow England to go to war with the Native Americans. When Powhatan refuses to go, Pocahontas volunteers instead. Pocahontas visits Grandmother Willow the next day, asking for advice for the journey, and is told to listen to the spirit within. Later, she leaves with Rolfe for England and is nearly arrested for harboring stowaways before he comes to her aid. They come to a truce. Upon arriving in England, Pocahontas is astounded by this new world. But at the height of her fun, Ratcliffe appears and grins evilly when he finds out she is the ambassador instead of her father Powhatan. He hands Rolf a proclamation that King James has signed that says an armada is going to set sail to destroy the Powhatan tribe. Rolf and Pocahontas set out for his townhouse outside of London, where Mrs. Jenkins happily greets them and puts on tea. Rolf goes off to meet with King James alone. King James, tricked by Ratcliffe, invites Pocahontas and Rolf to the hunt ball. If Pocahontas can impress King James and Queen Anne, her people will be saved. If she is deemed uncivilized, however, then the armada will sail. Rolf and Mrs. Jenkins teach Pocahontas how to fit into English society, dressing her as an Englishwoman and teaching her how to dance. At first, she impresses King James and Queen Anne, but during dinner she is horrified by a bear-baiting spectacle. Unknown to her, Ratcliffe had arranged it, knowing she would not approve. When she disrupts the bear baiting and comes to the bear's defense, she angers King James by calling him and his people barbarians. And as a result, she and her bodyguard, Utamatomakan, assigned by Powhatan, are arrested and scheduled to be executed. Later on, Rolf and a disguised smith break Pocahontas and Utamatomakan out of the Tower of London and escape into the woods to avoid King James' troops. She is shocked when Smith reveals himself and says that the rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated. They take her and her friends to a cabin in the forest. Smith explains that he had gone into hiding to avoid a treason conviction. While he wants to resume his relationship with Pocahontas, she's more concerned about the armada scheduled to sail to Virginia to attack her people. Rolf and Smith begin to argue over a course of action. Smith believes Pocahontas should stay in hiding to avoid being hanged or decapitated, while Rolf believes she should follow her heart. She runs off, upset at the arguing between them, while Smith realizes that Rolf is in love with her. How Smith feels about this seems rather vague. After spending some time at the edge of a river, remembering what Nakoma said back in Virginia, and reuniting with Miko, Flit, and Percy, she soon returns ready to face King James herself and face the consequences, whatever they may be, earning both Smith and Rolf's respect for her bravery. The next day, Pocahontas prepares to face King James, willing to sacrifice herself to save her people. While she convinces Queen Anne, King James does not believe her until Smith shows up. Upon seeing that he is alive and well, King James realizes that Ratcliffe has lied about everything. Pocahontas says they need to stop the armada, but Queen Anne reveals that they have already left. Pocahontas counters that they must at least try, and it turns out that the armada had not actually set sail just yet. She, Smith, and Rolf are able to stop them, and Ratcliffe is arrested by King James when he returns to shore, facing severe punishment for his crimes. Smith is given a ship of his own and a royal pardon, while Rolf is offered an advisory position to King James. During the celebratory ball, Pocahontas plans to return home on the next ship and is trying to work up the courage to ask Rolf, with whom she has fallen in love, to come with her. Smith plans to travel the world and wants her to come with him, but she explains that she feels that they've grown too far apart while assuring him that she does, and always will, still care about him as a friend. After thinking it over, he understands what she's getting at and accepts her decision, wishing her happiness for the future, and she wishes him the same. After he leaves, she goes in search of Rolf, but as she'll be leaving soon to sail back to Virginia, she's ultimately forced to board the ship by herself. When she becomes saddened that she'll probably never see Rolf again, he emerges from the shadows and they embrace. When she asks him, "What about your duty to the king?" he responds by saying, "I have a duty to honor what's in my heart." They share a kiss as the ship sails off into the sunset to return to Virginia. Mulan. Mulan resides in a small Chinese village with her father, her mother, and her wisecracking grandmother, after whom Mulan takes. She also has a dog named Little Brother. As the standard of the period, Mulan is urged to uphold her family honor by adhering to the status quo set for women of the time. However, she is presented as an outcast. She is clumsy and seeks to finish her household chores by inventing contraptions to do the work in her place, much to the chagrin of her father. As a member of the Fa family, Mulan is under the protection of the Fa family ancestors and the family guardians, which are represented by animals of the Chinese zodiac. By the end of the original Mulan, Mulan's personal guardian is that of Mushu, a diminutive dragon. At the start of the film, Mulan is seen rehearsing her answers for the matchmaker's examination. She noted the answers on her arm. Despite running late, Mulan makes it to the matchmaker, but her time there ends in humiliating failure. Shortly after, the Emperor's counselor Chifu arrives in her village to announce that the deadly Huns, led by Shan Yu, have invaded China after breaching the Great Wall, and that one man in every family must serve in the war, being conscripted into the imperial army to reinforce the Emperor's troops and defend the imperial city and other communities from the Huns. Despite her protests, her father agrees to go despite his old age and disabilities. When she tries to argue with him that night, Fa Zhu reprimands her and hurts her feelings, causing her to run out and weep on the stone dragon statue in the middle of a storm. Knowing her father would die, and knowing what she must do now to prevent it, Mulan secretly goes in his place by posing as a man, cutting her long hair with her father's sword, stealing her father's armor, and riding away on her horse, Khan. That night, her journey to honor has begun. On her way to the army camp, Mulan meets Mushu, a small dragon who claims to be a guardian sent to her by her ancestors. He agrees to help her pass as a soldier. Though Mulan fails the army training at first, no thanks to having gotten on the bad side of the other recruits, including Yao, Ling, and Qian Po, and Mushu trying to help through trickery, which only serves to anger her superior officer and Captain Li Shang, she uses her intelligence and determination and becomes the first soldier to solve a puzzle set by Shang. This happens just after Shang decided that she had failed the training regiment and was not fit to serve in the Imperial Army, since her lack of strength and discipline would be putting her own life and that of her fellow troops in great danger, handing her the reins of her horse and telling her to go home, especially after she got on Chifu's bad side when a misfired rocket launched by her destroyed his tent, only reinforcing his belief Shang's troops would be unfit in his eyes to head to the war front. While Mulan could have done that, seeing as she had already ensured her father would not be killed in battle due to his body and old war wounds catching up to him, she attempts the first test with recovering the arrow at the top of a tall pillar again. Upon figuring out how to solve it, she's nearly to the top when the other recruits begin to wake up as dawn breaks. Seeing her efforts, they cheer her on, putting aside their earlier teasing of her, and when Shang comes out to see what is going on, he is shocked and surprised when the arrow lands at his feet, and sees that Mulan was the one who solved his puzzle. With that, he's convinced to give her another chance and allows her back into the regiment. Afterward, she rapidly progresses to become one of the best soldiers in the unit, while also giving the encouragement to the other recruits to improve as well, turning them into respectable soldiers that Shang felt were ready to see combat. She also befriends Yao, Ling, and Qian Po, 3 fellow soldiers, though she is forced to hide her gender. Through the machinations of Mushu, the soldiers are called to the war front. After finding that the main Imperial Chinese army, led by Shang's father General Li, had been completely destroyed by the Huns, with no survivors left standing from either the general's army or the village they had been protecting from Shan Yu and the Huns, Shang leads Mulan and the other soldiers to stop them since their unit was the only defense left standing between Shan Yu and the Imperial city. Despite the unit being outnumbered after Mushu blows their cover and alerts the Huns to their position, Mulan is able to defeat the Huns by starting an avalanche and burying them by way of the last rocket in the army's munitions. She sustains an injury from Shan Yu, which results in her true gender being revealed. She is spared death, the punishment for a woman joining the army, as Shang's way of repaying the debt from Mulan rescuing him during the avalanche. Mulan is left behind by the army and prepares to return home to face humiliation. However, she discovers that Shan Yu and his 5 generals have survived the avalanche and are heading towards the Imperial city. Mulan arrives first and attempts to warn Shang. However, as a woman, she is ignored by him and everyone else, after what happened previously, except for Yao, Ling, and Qian Po, and orders them to keep an eye out for Shan Yu and the surviving Huns. However, when Shan Yu reveals himself and captures the Emperor, Shang, Yao, Ling, and Qian Po join her in a rescue attempt. Mulan disguises herself, Yao, Ling, and Qian Po as concubines and takes out the Hun guards, allowing Shang to reach Shan Yu and the Emperor. Yao, Ling, and Qian Po escape with the Emperor, but Mulan remains behind after Shang is knocked unconscious by Shan Yu. She reveals herself to the ruthless leader of the Huns as the soldier who took out most of his army, which angers Shan Yu. Shan Yu draws his sword and angrily slashes at her, tearing down portions of the palace in the process. While running from Shan Yu, she plans to kill him using fireworks. While Mushu and Kriki fetch the fireworks, Mulan faces Shan Yu on the roof of the Emperor's palace. She disarms him with a paper fan and uses his own sword to pin him to the roof, allowing Mushu to launch a fireworks rocket at Shan Yu, killing him on impact with a nearby fireworks tower. Mulan is oppressed by Chifu for the final time when he arrogantly says that she is unworthy of being called a hero or being worth anything as a woman. Mulan is then confronted by the Emperor with her various crimes, having heard about them from Chifu. At the same time, he acknowledges that she saved all of China and bows to her out of respect. His gesture results in all the gathered people bowing as well. The Emperor first offers Mulan a council position, then a job as consul, both of which Mulan respectfully declines, explaining that she'd much rather go back home to her family. The Emperor accepts this and gifts her with his personal crest and Shan Yu's sword. Having changed from a once gawky misfit into an honorable heroine, Mulan returns home and is able to reconcile with her father. The film's end shows Mulan inviting Shang, who had followed Mulan under the guise of returning her helmet, to dinner. She is last seen thanking Mushu for his guardianship. 1 month later, Li Shang, now promoted from captain to general, proposes to Mulan and they begin preparing for their wedding. However, the Emperor tasks them both with escorting his 3 daughters to the neighboring Chinese kingdom of Qigong in an attempt to form an alliance. Should the alliance fail, the Mongols would invade China just like the Huns did. Mulan and Shang ask Yao, Ling, and Qian Po to accompany them. Shang and Mulan's relationship becomes somewhat strained during the trip, as the couple has differing views on various issues, particularly on the subject of arranged marriages the princesses are being forced into. Meanwhile, Mushu is informed that if Mulan marries Shang, he will cease to be a guardian, instead returning to his former job of gong ringer. Mushu takes advantage of Mulan and Shang's differences and tries to break them up. However, Mulan soon discovers Mushu's plans when he confesses and tries to reconcile with Shang after voicing her disappointment with Mushu and how she'll never forgive him for his actions. Before she can talk to Shang, bandits attack the group. Shang and Mulan are able to save the princesses but are left hanging from a broken bridge. Shang chooses to sacrifice himself as the bridge can only support one. Mulan tearfully mourns his death and refuses to move from the spot she is in until sunrise. Mulan and the princesses continue towards Qigong. Seeing that the princesses have fallen in love with Yao, Ling, and Qianpo and believing that Shang is dead, Mulan prepares to offer herself as a bride in their places. However, Shang is revealed to have survived his fall and travels to stop her. Mushu is able to fix things by masquerading as the Golden Dragon of Unity and forces the king to stop the wedding. The joyful princesses are released from their vows and Shang and Mulan are informally married. They later hold an actual wedding at the Fa family home, although it is unknown how much time has passed since they returned from Qigong to the imperial city. At the end of the film, it is revealed that Mulan had reconciled with Mushu and has told Shang about Mushu, whom he calls the Golden Dragon of Unity, and that prompts Shang to combine the family temples, allowing Mushu to remain a family guardian, much to the disappointment of Mulan's ancestors. Tiana. The film begins during Tiana's childhood, where she is seen with her best friend Charlotte LeBoeuf listening to the classic tale The Frog Prince, read by Tiana's mother Eudora, while she finishes Charlotte's newest princess gown. While Charlotte adores the tale and openly wishes to find a prince and one day become a princess, Tiana shows that she's somewhat unamused with the story. Considerably, the kissing finale between the princess and the frog she was disgusted by. After the story's completion, Tiana and her mother depart, heading for home where they greet Tiana's father, the hardworking James. Later on, with the help of James, Tiana makes their favorite dinner, gumbo. Tiana gives her father a taste of some of her gumbo, which she hopes to be the prime attraction when she and her father open their very own restaurant, Tiana's Place. That night, as Tiana was being put to bed, she explains to her parents that Charlotte's fairy tale book says that when you wish upon a star, it's sure to come true. Eudora tells her to continue wishing. James tells her to continue wishing too, but also explains that wishing on stars can only take her partway to her dream, as she also needs to work hard to help make it come true, which she understands. As her parents say goodnight to her, she looks at the evening star and sees a frog on her windowsill. Thinking it wants to kiss her, she screams after it croaks, scaring the frog, and runs out of her room. Years later, it is revealed that the now-adult Tiana is still struggling to reach her dream even after her father passed away. Since childhood, she has become a mature young woman, though she has discarded her original childhood imagination of wishing and such, and has become an overly practical workaholic instead. She works as a waitress at 2 local diners during the day and night. The desire to open the restaurant prevents Tiana from going out with her friends, as she must work extra for more pay. Meanwhile, the handsome Prince Naveen, who had been cut off from his family fortune, arrives in New Orleans to find a way to become rich again. To celebrate, Charlotte plans on throwing a masquerade ball and hires Tiana to make dozens of beignets, paying her with enough money to buy her restaurant. Excited, Tiana and her mother place a bid on an old rundown sugar mill that Tiana's father had talked about many times before and planned to use as the location. Though the building is extremely worn out and practically falling apart, Tiana couldn't have been more excited with her dream coming closer and closer to coming true. Later that night at the ball, Tiana discovers that she's been outbid, and unless she earns enough money in 2 days by Wednesday, she loses the restaurant, though it is possible that the restaurant was being withheld from her due to her race, which is historically accurate given that the movie takes place in the southern United States, but this is never elaborated on. In a mishap, Tiana ruins her outfit and goes to Charlotte's room to change. Charlotte gives her a princess gown and tiara and then heads back down to the ball. Saddened, Tiana heads to the balcony and in desperation makes a wish upon the evening star in hopes of making things work out in the end. After her wish, Tiana meets a talking frog who reveals himself to be Prince Naveen, much to her confusion. Due to being cursed by a voodoo witch doctor, Naveen asks for help from Tiana, who he believes is a princess. Following the tale of the Frog Prince, Naveen asks Tiana for a kiss in an attempt to break the spell, but Tiana is incredibly hesitant to kiss a frog. Naveen offers her a reward, telling her that he comes from a fabulously wealthy family. Knowing she needs more money to open her restaurant, Tiana reluctantly kisses Naveen. The only thing it does, however, is change Tiana into a frog as well, since she wasn't actually a princess. Horrified and enraged by her unexpected transformation, Tiana attacks Naveen, resulting in both of them getting launched out of the room and onto the ball's dance floor. Charlotte's father, Big Daddy, orders their dog Stella to get the frogs after they land in Charlotte's dress. Tiana and Naveen luckily escape on a cluster of balloons, which eventually float out over into the cold, miserable bayou of New Orleans. While floating down, Naveen reveals to Tiana that he was transformed into the frog by the Shadow Man. She then tells him that the only way to get what you want is through hard work, and Naveen asks why a princess would need to work hard. Tiana then tells Naveen that she's a waitress, not a princess, which explains to Naveen why the kiss didn't work, and accuses her of lying to him while he also reveals that he's completely broke. Suddenly, the balloons pop and the two land in a swamp filled with alligators. In the midst of the chaos, Naveen promises to pay for Tiana's restaurant if she can help him out of the swamp. Tiana agrees and they spend the rest of the night in an old hollow tree trunk for shelter from the vicious alligators. During their journey the next morning, they meet Louis, a friendly alligator with a gift of playing the trumpet. Naveen and Tiana explain that they are humans turned into frogs via the magic of a voodoo witch doctor. Hearing voodoo, Louis informs them of Mama Odie, a voodoo priest who can help them turn human. Naveen convinces the gator to lead them to Mama Odie so that he can be human too. Along the way, they meet Ray. Upon being told of Tiana and Naveen's dilemma, Ray happily decides to light the way and act as their guide to Mama Odie, with the help of his massive family of fireflies. During their journey, Tiana and Naveen gradually become closer, a progression that is kick-started after saving each other from a trio of bumbling frog hunters. During a rest, Naveen helps Tiana cook for their friends by mincing some mushrooms. With that being the first piece of work Naveen has ever done, he reveals that, despite living the charmed life of a prince, he feels deep down that he knows how to do absolutely nothing besides partying, which he is ashamed of. Tiana, feeling sympathy, compliments Naveen's mincing skills, growing the two even closer. Moments later, Ray introduces his friends to Evangeline, singing a love ballad in her honor. During this, Naveen attempts to waltz with Tiana, but Tiana declines, admitting that she's never learned to dance. Naveen, however, quickly decides that, to return the favor to Tiana for teaching him how to mince, he will teach her how to dance. After the romantic waltz, Naveen and Tiana officially begin to fall in love with one another. They nearly kiss after their dance, but Tiana pulls away because he's supposed to marry Charlotte. Once Tiana hops away from Naveen, he is captured by a pack of shadow demons sent by the witch doctor, Dr. Facilier, who needs Naveen to fulfill his evil scheme to take over New Orleans. Fortunately, he is saved by Mama Odie, who takes them to her home, a boat in a tree. Tiana tries to explain to Mama that all they want is to be human, but Mama Odie knows that what Tiana and Naveen really want after the adventure they had was each other. However, Tiana fails to realize this and believes Mama Odie's motto of dig a little deeper means work extra hard to get her restaurant. Although Naveen completely understands that, instead of riches, what his heart truly desires was Tiana. But with Tiana misunderstanding, Mama Odie decides to put the romance aside and give the two frogs the solution to their problem. Mama Odie tells them that if Naveen were to kiss a princess, they'll both turn human. She then uses her magic brew to locate a nearby princess, which reveals to be Charlotte, who is the princess of the Mardi Gras parade. Unfortunately, Naveen has only until midnight, when Mardi Gras is over, to kiss Charlotte and break the spell. They head off on a riverboat to New Orleans, where Naveen decides he wants to reveal his true romantic feelings to Tiana, figuring he'll merely get a job to help raise money for her restaurant. Naveen sets up a date later that night under the stars on the riverboat. The prince was far too sheepish to successfully reveal the truth, but Tiana still finds his fumbling to be cute. Just then, the riverboat begins passing the old building Tiana plans on using for her restaurant. Tiana takes the time to tell Naveen about her dreams to open the restaurant. Knowing he can't afford to pay for the restaurant without marrying Charlotte and inheriting her fortune, Naveen decides not to tell her how he truly feels, for the sake of her dream. The riverboat then prepares to dock, and Naveen heads off to find Louis and Ray. Once he's gone, Tiana sadly speaks to Evangeline about her dilemma, revealing that she too is actually in love with Naveen, despite the fact that he must marry Charlotte for the money he promised her for her restaurant. Meanwhile, right before docking, Naveen is kidnapped by the shadow demons. Tiana, Louis, and Ray are oblivious to Naveen's capture, and after getting off the riverboat, Tiana asks Ray if he's seen Naveen. Instead, Ray accidentally tells Tiana that Naveen actually loves her and plans on getting a job to pay for her restaurant. Overjoyed, Tiana and Ray head off to the Mardi Gras parade to find him and return the feelings. Unfortunately, Tiana instead finds Naveen, who is really Lawrence in disguise, as a human, atop a parade float about to marry Charlotte. Heartbroken, Tiana runs off. Ray follows and tries to convince Tiana that they should go back to look more into what they say, but Tiana discards the idea, losing her faith in wishing and dreams once more, as well as snapping at Ray out of heartbreak when he mentions Evangeline, hurting him by saying she is nothing more than a star and that he needs to open his eyes before he gets hurt too, but he refuses to believe her. Determined to show Tiana the truth, Ray flies back to the parade, where he learns that the Naveen they saw about to marry Charlotte is actually Naveen's former valet, Lawrence, in disguise. It turns out Lawrence was under the disguise as part of a plot by Facilier, who plans on having Lawrence marry Charlotte and steal the LaBeouf fortune by doing so, thus making the Shadow Man the richest man in New Orleans. The real Naveen, still a frog, was still in captivity until Ray rescues him. Ray also recovers the talisman that Lawrence was using to disguise himself as Naveen. Without it, his cover is exposed and leads to his arrest. Later, Ray gives it to Tiana and instructs her to keep it away from the Shadow Man at all costs, prompting her to run in fear as the Shadow Demons were in hot pursuit. Tiana tries to escape, but the Shadow Man meets up with her and conjures up a vision of the fancy restaurant she's dreamt of all her life and even turns her human again. The Shadow Man tries to coerce Tiana into striking a deal with him, hand over the talisman in exchange for a restaurant, but she refuses. The Shadow Man then tries to seal the deal by reminding her of everything she had sacrificed, those who have doubted her ability, and her father James in his struggles to open the restaurant, but this only comes as a help to Tiana in realizing that, while her father never got what he wanted, he had what he needed. He had love, and he never lost sight of what was really important in life. Tiana declares that she won't forget either, and throws the talisman at the floor, nearly destroying it, but the Shadow Man's shadow catches it and hands it back to him. He then shatters the restaurant manifestation and turns her back into a frog. While the Shadow Man holds Tiana down, he taunts her for not accepting his deal, and now she'll spend the rest of her life being a slimy little frog. However, she replies with, "I got news for you, Shadow Man. It's not slime, it's mucus," which is what Naveen told her when she first became a frog, before using her prehensile tongue to regain the talisman and break it, thus ending the villainous plot for good. After its destruction, Tiana watches in shock as the Shadow Man is dragged to his demise by his friends, though before he mentioned still having Naveen locked away, revealing that Ray had been right the whole time. Once the coast is clear, Tiana heads back to the concluded Mardi Gras parade, where she witnesses Lawrence being arrested, learning that he was the Naveen Charlotte had been hanging out with the whole time. Not too far away, Tiana finds Naveen, who is in the process of making a deal with Charlotte. If she turns him human through a kiss, he'd marry her so long as she pays for Tiana's restaurant. Tiana intervenes and confesses her feelings for Naveen. Touched by the romantic sight, Charlotte agrees to kiss Naveen, but only for Tiana's dream to come true. But the clock strikes 12 and Charlotte is no longer a princess, as Mardi Gras was officially over. Nevertheless, of the curse supposedly becoming permanent, Tiana and Naveen were content being frogs so long as they could stay together. Suddenly, Lewis arrives and explains that Ray was fatally wounded by the Shadow Man during the battle against the Voodoo Witch Doctor's demons. Ray manages to have a conversation with all three of his friends one last time before passing away. Tiana attends his funeral, but joins in the jubilation after Ray becomes a star right beside Evangeline. Shortly afterward, Tiana and Naveen marry in the bayou, with Mama Odie taking charge of the ceremony and many animals and fireflies attending. As they kiss, they turn back into humans, as Tiana is now a princess by marrying Prince Naveen. After having a royal second wedding as humans back in New Orleans, Tiana and Naveen use the money that she saved to open the restaurant, with a little intimidation help from Lewis, who frightens the snooty bidders into accepting what Tiana had. The restaurant, as hoped, is a big success with people from all around attending, just as Tiana and her father dreamed. She renames it Tiana's Palace and enjoys a dance with Naveen to Lewis and his band's music, as Ray and Evangeline watch over them on what was truly a magical evening. Rapunzel. 18 years before the events of Tangled, Rapunzel's parents, King Frederick and Queen Ariana of Corona, were anticipating their firstborn. Unfortunately, very late in her pregnancy, the queen fell ill with what would surely result in her death as well as her child's. Fearing the death of his love, the king dispatched multitudes of soldiers and villagers alongside the populace to search for a rumored magic flower created by a single drop of sunlight with the potential to heal illnesses. After much searching, the flower, long hoarded by a woman named Mother Gothel, who has kept herself young by singing a song to it, is miraculously located and boiled into medicine to cure the queen of her illness. With the help of the flower, the queen makes a full recovery and soon gives birth to a healthy baby girl named Rapunzel, who, unlike her brunette parents, has beautiful golden hair. To celebrate her birth, a floating lantern with the emblem of the sun, the corona symbol, was released into the sky amongst the people of Corona. The peace did not last long, however. Determined to retrieve the flower that kept her young and alive for hundreds of years, Mother Gothel broke into the castle late one night and sang the song to Rapunzel's hair. Discovering that Rapunzel's hair retained the flower's healing powers, Gothel attempted to cut a piece off for herself, only to find that the lock lost its magic and became brown. Frustrated and desperate, Gothel kidnapped the princess and fled to her tower, hidden within an alcove deep in the forest. To protect Rapunzel's hair, Gothel raised Rapunzel as her own daughter and taught her to sing the flower's song. To further ensure her magic supply was plentiful, Gothel continuously brushed the hair to further its growth. Although Rapunzel wished to leave the tower, Gothel warned her of a dangerous world beyond the tower walls, full of selfish people that desired to steal her hair and abuse her power. Meanwhile, the kingdom searched far and wide for their missing princess, but to no avail. As a result, each year on Rapunzel's birthday, the king, the queen, and the entire kingdom release thousands of lanterns into the night sky, in hopes that one day their lost princess will return. One night, while in the tower alone, Rapunzel would encounter a baby chameleon at her tower window, being followed by a venomous snake. The chameleon is bitten by the snake and dies from poisoning, though Rapunzel is able to both rid the tower of the snake and revive the deceased chameleon with the power of her hair. The chameleon reveals itself to be alone in the world, something Rapunzel relates to, as Gothel would leave her alone in the tower for lengthy periods of time frequently. Rapunzel names the chameleon Pascal, and to remedy their mutual loneliness, invites him to live with her, so they may remain by each other's side from that night forward and become best friends. Rapunzel is first seen during Eugene's narration over the prologue, which tells the tale of how Rapunzel unknowingly lost her family and came into Gothel's possession. Almost 18 years after her kidnapping, Rapunzel, now a young woman with 70 feet of hair, plays a quick game of hide-and-seek with her pet chameleon Pascal. While Mother Gothel, whom she views as her mother, is away, Rapunzel does many tasks throughout the tower to occupy her time. Though she is happy with her life in the tower, Rapunzel longs to someday explore the outside world. Since childhood, she's become fascinated by an annual event that seems to happen only on her birthday. That night, every year, she witnesses thousands of beautiful floating lights in the sky, brighter than the stars, rise over the tops of the alcove and into the view of the tower's largest window. Wanting to know the meaning behind this phenomenon, Rapunzel develops a dream to see these lights in person. The day before her 18th birthday, she decides with Pascal that she will finally ask Mother Gothel to see the lights. Soon after, Mother Gothel finally arrives at the base of the tower and calls for Rapunzel to let down her long hair. Rapunzel complies and uses her hair in a lantern holder as a rope and pulley to bring Gothel to the window. Gothel then intensively teases Rapunzel for her slowness and decreases her confidence in front of a mirror, before saying she loves her as usual and asking her to sing the incantation to her hair. Instinctively, Rapunzel pulls up a chair and sings the incantation hurriedly, causing Gothel to become younger almost instantly. With her 18th birthday arriving, Rapunzel has gained the courage to ask Mother Gothel if she can see the floating lanterns because she believes they are somehow connected to her, and does so. Gothel spurns her request, however, informing Rapunzel through song that the world is much too dangerous for someone as naive and gullible as her, and that she wants to keep Rapunzel safe. She proceeds to warn and frighten her of men with sharp teeth, ruffians, poison ivy, snakes, cannibals, and even the plague, and harshly requests that she never ask her to leave the tower again. Her previous courage shattered, Rapunzel solemnly promises not to ask to leave the tower again and helps Gothel depart from the tower. Back at the tower, a young thief by the name of Flynn Rider has just completed a daring daylight robbery at Corona Castle, successfully stealing the crown of the lost princess, betraying his partners and eluding the palace guards, as well as a fierce military horse named Maximus. Seeking refuge from his combatants, the bandit accidentally stumbles into the clearing where Rapunzel's tower resides. Deciding to hide within the tower, he proceeds to scale the wall of the tower with arrows and enters into what turns out to be Rapunzel's room. Seemingly alone, Flynn pulls the crown from his satchel to admire his successful stolen prize, but is instantly knocked out cold by Rapunzel's frying pan. Scared, Rapunzel cowers behind a dress form before stepping forward to investigate the intruder with Pascal. Pascal advises Rapunzel to be wary of the young man, since Gothel is often told stories of men bearing sharp teeth, and they both fear that he is a monster from the outside. However, Rapunzel finds nothing outwardly menacing about Flynn. Concluding that he is just another person, she decides to hide him in her wardrobe. Afterwards, she finds his satchel containing the crown. Although she has never seen a crown before and doesn't know what one is, she tries to wear it in a few different ways and sets it on her head, before being interrupted by Gothel calling to her from outside. She swiftly hides the crown and satchel and brings Gothel up the tower once more. Rapunzel decides that she will show her mother the young man she has captured, proving that she can take care of herself, and again hopes that she will be let out of the tower for her approaching 18th birthday. Unfortunately for Rapunzel, Gothel becomes enraged when she brings up the subject of leaving again, and shouts that she will never leave the tower as long as she lives. Rapunzel is crushed by her words, as her dreams of exploring outside the tower and watching the lanterns are dashed to the ground. She keeps from telling her that she has a stranger locked away in her closet, and instead asks for paint made from special white seashells as a gift instead. Although Gothel is hesitant at first and bemoans the fact that the paint requires a 3-day journey, she agrees to retrieve the paint to appease her and bids her disappointed daughter farewell. Once out of sight, Rapunzel takes Flynn out of her closet and uses her hair to tie him up to a chair. Pascal wakes him by sticking his tongue in his ear, and Flynn, not seeing Rapunzel at first, is frightened by his current predicament. When she steps into view, however, he realizes that she is just a beautiful young girl and starts hitting on her, much to her confusion. She immediately assumes he's there to kidnap her and steal her hair and interrogates him, but he has no knowledge of what she's talking about. When she realizes he's telling the truth, Rapunzel decided that she has found her chance to see the lanterns. Knowing that he wants his satchel, she strikes him over the head, hides his satchel within the tower, and proposes a deal. The two of them will leave the tower together, and he will take her to see the floating lights the next night. He will then bring her back to the tower the following day before Gothel returns. In exchange for his efforts, she promises to give him back the crown and let him leave. Flynn reluctantly agrees, simply to retrieve his loot. Outside the tower, Rapunzel nervously digs her toes into the grass for the first time and runs about the forest in bursts of elation and panic like a child, while Flynn can only watch. While excited to be out in the world for the first time, Rapunzel feels equally ashamed for having defied her mother. She thinks she is a terrible daughter for disobeying her mother's directions and worries that her misbehavior will break her mother's heart. Flynn attempts to discourage her from traveling away from the tower by guaranteeing her that her rebellious actions will break her mother's heart and crush her soul. He suggested that she should simply give him the satchel back and return to the tower, but Rapunzel's desire to see the lanterns sees through his ploy. Despite her guilt and confusion, she assures Flynn that she is fine enough to continue the journey. Hoping to dissuade her, Flynn takes her to the nearby Snuggly Duckling, a local tavern which is frequented by an assortment of ruffians and thugs like the ones Gothel warned of. Flynn's plan to scare Rapunzel into going back to the tower backfires when the thugs recognize him from wanted posters and attempt to hold him for a reward while one of their associates goes to tip off the guards. Rapunzel pleads with them to release him because she needs him to fulfill her dreams of seeing the lanterns, and asks if they've ever had a dream. Their leader, Hookhand, approaches as if he will strike her, but Rapunzel's innocence melts his heart, and he admits he has a dream to become a pianist. The entire pub soon begins to come alive as the other members confess their dreams alongside Rapunzel. When the guards arrive, the thugs stage a distraction to help Rapunzel and Flynn escape through a secret cellar tunnel and encourage Rapunzel to live her dream. As they traverse the cavern, Rapunzel curiously asks about Flynn's origins, but Flynn casually refuses to answer. While he acknowledges that she too has secrets she doesn't want to tell, he can't help but ask her why she hasn't gone to see the lanterns before. She hesitates, but just then they realize that they are being rapidly pursued by the palace guards. Heading outside the tunnel, Rapunzel and Flynn find themselves on a ledge overlooking a quarry created below a massive dam. Rapunzel is very surprised to find that beside the palace guards, the Stabbington twins are also giving chase, having escaped their chains, and the horse Maximus is also on their path. Appearing to be cornered, Rapunzel uses her hair to swing to an opposing ledge and leaves Flynn her frying pan, enabling him to fend off the guards and sword fight with Maximus. As Maximus disarms Flynn and corners him, Rapunzel lassos him with her hair and pulls him to safety. Unable to reach him, the furious horse unhinges a large wooden beam from the dam in an attempt to reach them, but renders the dam overlooking the quarry unstable. It soon collapses and a wave of water surges into the quarry, quickly flooding it. The pair narrowly outruns the massive wave, but become trapped inside a small dead-end tunnel as a massive pillar of stone collapses and blocks the entrance. Water rapidly begins to flood into the cave, and realizing their doom, they try to pull at the rocks to no avail, and Flynn only manages to cut his hand. They both try to look for an escape under the rapidly rising water, but there's no light in the cave and they can barely see each other above it. As they think they're about to die, Rapunzel cries and apologizes to Flynn for dragging him into this, and Flynn admits that his real name is Eugene Fitzherbert because he thought someone should know before he died. Rapunzel tries to make him feel better by admitting that she has magic hair that glows, only to realize that they can use her hair to search for an escape in the dark water. She sings the magic song just as the air pocket disappears, and they end up underwater, where Rapunzel's hair illuminates the cave. In the lit water, Eugene discovers a break in the rocks where water flows out and manages to dislodge them, releasing them out the other side. That night, they set up a campfire in the woods, and Rapunzel heals Eugene's hand with her hair. The dumbstruck thief just manages to keep his cool, and Rapunzel explains everything to him, including her lifelong imprisonment by Gothel to protect her magic hair, and that if the hair is ever cut, it will turn brown and lose its power. Flynn is empathetic toward her ambiguous feelings over returning to the tower. When questioned about his real name, Flynn tells his childhood story of growing up as an orphan and reading a book called The Tales of Flynnigan Rider, the escapades of a daring adventurer with every benefit to an exciting life full of dangers, riches, and ladies. Flynn has chosen to adopt the name and lifestyle, even though the real Flynn Rider wasn't a thief, and feeling anything would be a better option than being a helpless orphan. Rapunzel tells him that she likes the name Eugene Fitzherbert much better than his adopted name, and the pair forms a close bond. When Eugene leaves to collect more firewood, Gothel appears and tells Rapunzel that they are going home. Rapunzel refuses, believing that Eugene is beginning to like her. Gothel presents Rapunzel with Eugene's satchel and challenges her to return it to him, warning her that he will simply abandon her as he only wants the satchel back. Gothel then disappears, leaving Rapunzel feeling doubtful about her new romance. The next morning, Rapunzel wakes to find that they have been discovered by Maximus, a high-ranking palace horse on a personal mission to bring Eugene to justice. Rapunzel calms and befriends the frenzied horse, and requests that he refrain from arresting Eugene for the next 24 hours so that they can see the lanterns. Maximus and Eugene make a reluctant truce and journey into the kingdom with Rapunzel and Pascal. Eugene and Rapunzel enjoy each other's company greatly as they spend the day touring the kingdom and indulging in everything it has to offer. Along with that, Rapunzel makes a wondrous impression on the villagers, bringing whimsy and excitement to their already enjoyable festival, winning their hearts instantly. She also learns of the lost princess, though she doesn't recognize it's her in the mural of the royal family, and before she has time to ponder further, she engages in more fun-filled activities with the villagers and Eugene. During the day, their romantic feelings for each other begin to grow stronger and slowly start to emerge. At dusk, Eugene and Rapunzel row out to the lake to watch the lanterns rise into the sky. As they wait for the lanterns to appear, Eugene notices that Rapunzel is not too happy. In fact, she's terrified. She confesses that after all the excitement that is built up inside her about seeing the floating lights, she's worried that they may not be everything she expected. Eugene assures her they will be, and if they are, she gets to go find herself a new dream afterwards. That night, Rapunzel is overjoyed to finally be living her dream as she enchantingly watches the lanterns float from the streets of the kingdom to the boats on the lake. When Eugene presents her with a pair of their own lanterns, Rapunzel shows him his satchel, saying she was scared to give it to him before. Eugene refuses the satchel and says he knows how she feels. As Rapunzel watches the lanterns, Eugene unexpectedly takes her hand, much to her delight, as they both finally and fully realize they have fallen in love with each other as they finish singing "I See the Light" together. They are just about to kiss when Eugene pulls back apprehensively as he sees the Stabbington brothers on the other side of the lake, unbeknownst to Rapunzel. He assures her everything is fine and quickly takes the boat ashore. He then takes the satchel and walks off into the fog, promising to return. Rapunzel becomes worried as Eugene leaves, and she ruminates on Gothel's warnings. After a moment of waiting, she sees a figure returning to her through the fog. She sighs with relief that Eugene did not take the crown and leave her. But the figure actually turns out to be two tall and brutal thugs whom she recognizes as the two men from the dam. They inform her that Eugene actually did leave her. At first she doesn't believe them, but they show her a boat sailing across the lake towards the kingdom with Eugene's silhouette at the helm. Rapunzel has little time to grieve as the two men show interest in her magical hair. They scheme to kidnap her and use her powers to earn them money, but Gothel appears and rescues her. Believing that she has been deserted by the man she thought loved her, a heartbroken Rapunzel goes with Gothel back to the tower. Back at the tower, as she mourns over losing Eugene, Rapunzel discovers that the emblem of the Kingdom of Corona has been unwittingly sketched into all the pictures she has painted over the years in her room. A sudden wave of memories and emotions from lying in her royal crib to trying on her crown floods her mind, causing her to realize that she is the lost princess of Corona. Rapunzel then confronts Gothel, expressing her repulsion at everything Gothel has done, and that she has been hiding with the person she should have been hiding from all along. Gothel says that she only wanted to protect Rapunzel and informs her that Eugene is scheduled to be hanged. Rapunzel becomes even angrier and states that she will never let Gothel use her hair again, but before she can leave, an enraged Gothel gags her and chains her to the wall. A little while later, she hears Eugene calling to her from outside, but can say or do nothing as Gothel throws Rapunzel's hair out the window for him to climb up. As Eugene gets to the top, Rapunzel attempts to warn him through her gag, but Eugene is fatally stabbed in the stomach by Gothel before he can do anything. Rapunzel's attempts to reach him are in vain, as Gothel leaves Eugene clutching his side on the floor and prepares to make her escape with the captive Rapunzel and leave Eugene to die in the tower. Rapunzel, with a lot of struggling and fighting, manages to get the gag off and declares that she will never stop fighting Gothel as long as she lives, but makes a promise to submit to her if she only is allowed to heal Eugene. Gothel, knowing Rapunzel never breaks her promises, agrees and chains Eugene down to prevent him from following them. Eugene begs Rapunzel to leave him and escape, but Rapunzel refuses, saying she won't let Eugene die and promises him that everything will be all right. Eugene, however, chooses to die rather than let Rapunzel be a prisoner again, so he cuts her hair before she can heal him. Rapunzel reacts in shock and watches in despair as the endless lengths of golden hair turn brown and lose their magic. With her source of magic gone, Gothel begins to rapidly age, losing her youth and beauty in a matter of seconds. Seeing her true form revealed, Gothel falls into a fit of hysteria, shrouding her face with her hood as she does so, and failing to realize Pascal tugging on a length of Rapunzel's dead hair, which she immediately trips over, falling out of the tower's entrance and plummeting to the ground. By the time she hits the surface, all that's left of the witch is her cloak and piles of dust. After a brief moment of shock over the death of her false mother, Rapunzel rushes to the side of a dying Eugene and sings the healing incantation, but Eugene interrupts her as he weakly tells her with his dying breaths that she was his new dream. Rapunzel, in reply, says that he was hers as well. Eugene then dies in her arms, leaving a heartbroken Rapunzel to hopelessly finish singing the incantation. She begins to cry over his body, letting a single teardrop fall onto his cheek, which is revealed to have the same power as the magic flower as it glows as it sinks into Eugene's body and heals his chest wound, reviving him. An overjoyed Rapunzel jubilantly embraces him, and the two then share their first kiss, finally proclaiming their love. Eugene accompanies Rapunzel back to the kingdom. Though the king and queen fail to recognize her at first, the queen takes a closer look and takes note of the striking resemblance, realizing her daughter is finally returned. It isn't long before the king learns the truth as well, and the royal family is reunited for the first time in years. Eugene watches on, and knowing the former thief played a part in the safe return of their daughter, the queen welcomes him into the reunion as well. In celebration of Rapunzel's return, the kingdom rejoiced with a party lasting an entire week. In the closing narration, it is said that Rapunzel became a beloved ruler and governed her land with grace and wisdom. Meanwhile, Eugene is accepted into the royal family and pardoned for his crimes. According to the former thief, after years of asking and asking and asking, he finally accepted Rapunzel's proposal to marry, only to be corrected by his bride. Eugene then amends that he asked her, which Rapunzel supports by stating that they are living happily ever after. Rapunzel and Eugene both appear in a short sequel to the first film. In the story, Rapunzel and Eugene are getting married, narrating the opening of the short as they claim it to be the happiest day of their lives, with the events of the ceremony nearly proceeding with perfection. She appears first in her wedding attire and standing at the entrance of the wedding hall, attracting the attention of everyone in attendance. Her father, the king, then walks her down the center aisle so that she can join her groom at the altar. The priest then starts his speech, but Maximus sneezes and accidentally loses their wedding rings. The two appear in a vision of Maximus and Pascal, where everyone in attendance becomes upset at the loss of the rings, though in reality, neither Rapunzel nor Eugene notice the dilemma or their animal companions leaving the ceremony to retrieve the missing rings. Rapunzel and Eugene are shown later after Maximus and Pascal manage to get the rings back, but the couple and everyone else are shocked at the grotesque-looking Maximus and Pascal, both covered with tar, who offer the rings. The two exchange their rings as the priest pronounces the couple husband and wife. Eugene and Rapunzel kiss, and everyone in attendance rejoices. Rapunzel serves as the protagonist of the animated television movie. Taking place 6 months after the events of Tangled, and about 2 years before Tangled Ever After, Rapunzel returns to her kingdom to assume her rightful place in the royal family. Having been reunited with her parents, Rapunzel tries to adjust to life as a princess, receiving help from Pascal and her lady-in-waiting, Cassandra. She tries her best, and despite having a loving family and supportive circle of friends, Rapunzel feels overwhelmed with the amount of responsibility that comes with being a princess. She asks her father for a change of pace in this regard, but he denies, fearing Rapunzel's desire to explore the world will lead to her falling into harm's way, much like she did 18 years prior when she was kidnapped by Gothel. On top of this, and the fact that Rapunzel's bubbly way of carrying herself is looked down upon by the royal community, Eugene feels confident enough to propose to Rapunzel and does so, much to the princess's shock and delight. However, despite her love for him, Rapunzel does not feel ready to marry, instead wanting to figure herself out and live the life she's been longing for. Overwhelmed and anxious, she rejects Eugene's proposal and leaves the scene in a huff. In her bedroom, Rapunzel laments her feelings of guilt to Cassandra, who believes Rapunzel could use some downtime. She offers to take Rapunzel beyond Corona's security wall, a forbidden act, and sneaks the princess out with the help of Maximus. During their outing, Cassandra takes Rapunzel to the former location of the healing flower that saved Rapunzel and her mother when the latter fell ill during her pregnancy. Mysterious thorn-like rocks have appeared in the area, and not only are they ominous, but also unbreakable. As Rapunzel examines the area further, she is struck by magic that causes her long golden hair to grow back. After returning to the castle, Rapunzel and Cassandra try to rid themselves of the hair, but like the rocks, it is unbreakable. Eugene arrives and discovers the truth, offering assistance in hiding it from Queen Ariana and King Frederick. Cassandra gets the idea of hiding the hair in an oversized wig, which helps well enough despite the awkwardness. Rapunzel then joins her parents for breakfast, and during which, Frederick admits that his methods of protecting Rapunzel have been rather unfair, and notes that he is reconsidering his decisions, much to Rapunzel's excitement. Afterward, Ariana visits Rapunzel in her bedroom to bestow a coronation gift. She encourages Rapunzel to choose how to live her life, and eventually rule the kingdom, despite her father's stubbornness and what others may think. She gives Rapunzel a journal she once used in her younger years, with a note that reads, "Plus en vous," meaning there is more in you. Later on, Rapunzel's coronation ceremony begins, and during which, the royal family is confronted by a pirate known as Lady Kane, who seeks vengeance on King Frederick for imprisoning her father. Frederick and the rest of the royal guards are kidnapped, but Rapunzel refuses to stand down and reveals her golden hair. She uses it as a weapon to defeat the pirates with Eugene and Cassandra's help, saving her father. That night, despite proving her worth, Frederick feels more insecure about Rapunzel's safety than ever before. With the very reason Rapunzel was taken in the first place having returned, Frederick feels he's forced to forbid Rapunzel from ever leaving the walls of Corona without his consent, driving his daughter to tears. With her father's new law, Rapunzel feels trapped once more, similar to her imprisonment within the tower. Eugene arrives and comforts her, uplifting her spirits and at the same time reconciles their relationship. After he leaves, Rapunzel reads the message in the journal given to her by Ariana and becomes inspired to pursue the adventures she's always desired, such as uncovering the mystery behind her hair's return, despite the obstacles she will have to face. Merida. Merida is the headstrong and free-spirited 16-year-old willful daughter of Queen Eleanor, who rules the kingdom alongside her husband, King Fergus. Queen Eleanor's expectations of her daughter cause Merida to see Eleanor as being distant, while also causing friction between the two. Despite Eleanor's desire to see Merida as a proper royal lady, Merida is an impetuous girl who wants to take control of her own destiny. Merida has honed her skill in archery and is one of the most skilled archers ever seen. She's also skilled in sword fighting and racing across the countryside on her horse, Angus. Despite her outgoing, forceful, headstrong, and willful personality, Merida does have a playful softness of heart, particularly when it comes to her younger triplet brothers, Harris, Hubert, and Hamish. Merida is first seen as a child playing hide-and-seek with her mother Queen Eleanor on her 6th birthday. Then, she sees her father's bow on the table and asks him if she can shoot an arrow with it. Fergus, her father, presents her with her own bow as a birthday present. She accidentally shoots her 6th arrow into the forest and goes to retrieve it, but is distracted by a trail of will-o'-the-wisps that appear before her. The wisps lead her out of the forest and back to her parents. Eleanor tells her that the wisps lead someone to their fate, but Fergus does not believe that. Suddenly, Mor'du attacks, and Eleanor and Merida flee while Fergus stays behind to fight the demonic bear. Years later, Merida is a teenager that Queen Eleanor is trying to make into a proper princess of royalty, despite Merida's objection. One day when there are no lessons, she goes riding on her horse Angus. She shoots arrows at targets she sets up in the forest and just explores. She even climbs the crone's tooth and drinks from the firefalls in joy. Merida returns home to join her family for dinner. As she enters, Merida listens to Fergus telling her triplet brothers the story of his battle with Mor'du, until she interrupts and tells them that their father lost his left leg in the battle and Mor'du is waiting for his chance of revenge. Moments later, Eleanor tells Merida that the 3 lords are coming to present their suitors to compete for her hand in marriage. Not wanting any of this, Merida angrily storms out of the Great Hall to her bedroom. As she takes out her anger and frustration on her bedposts by striking with her sword, Eleanor enters, telling her the story of a beloved king who had divided his kingdom for each of his 4 sons to rule. But the eldest wanted to rule the entire land and so brought chaos and war, and his desire to follow his own path led to the downfall of the kingdom. Merida still refuses to listen, but Eleanor is adamant and tells Merida to go through with it, even if she doesn't want it for the kingdom's good. Moments later, Merida is seen in Angus' stall talking to Angus about what she would say to her mother about her wishes if she would listen. Merida is determined she will not marry whoever wins the games. Days later, the lords arrive in Dunbruch. Eleanor prepares Merida in a tight formal dress, and they all gather in the Great Hall for the presentation of the suitors. Each of the lords presents his son. Merida is not pleased with any of them. A brawl breaks out at which Eleanor is disgusted and Merida is displeased. Eleanor proclaims that only the firstborn of the great leaders may compete in the games, which gives Merida an idea of how to get out of the marriage. She declares that she chooses archery for the Highland Games. When the competition begins, Merida sneaks her bow and arrows behind her throne. As the suitors shoot at the targets, she chats with Fergus about each of them until Wee Dingwall wins by accident, striking a bullseye. She sneaks off and appears on the field, declaring she will shoot for her own hand. Ignoring Eleanor's protests, she strikes the bullseye of the first 2 suitors' targets. When she shoots an arrow through the full length of Wee Dingwall's arrow and through the target, she smiles, until she sees her furious mother. Eleanor drags and throws Merida into the tapestry room as they have a heated argument with each other about Merida's actions, with Eleanor calling her a child and Merida calling her a beast for trying to ruin her life. Merida then ultimately snaps and slices the family tapestry between the pictures of herself, declaring she would rather die than be like her mother. Eleanor, in a fit of rage, throws Merida's bow into the fire out of anger. Merida tearfully runs away from the castle as Eleanor quickly fishes the bow from the fire, feeling horribly guilty, and she too breaks down. Merida is weeping as she rides Angus heedlessly through the forest until they come across the ring of stones and a trail of will-o'-the-wisps leading them to a woodcarver's cottage. Noticing a broom that sweeps by itself and a talking crow, Merida discovers that the old woodcarver is actually a witch and asks for a spell. The witch tells her to get out, threatening her with floating knives until Merida offers to buy all of her carvings with her silver pendant in exchange for a spell that will change her fate. The witch begrudgingly gives in and conjures up a cursed cake, which she says that she did for a prince who had wanted the strength of 10 men and got what he wanted. Merida takes the cake and heads back to Dunbrook. She sneaks back into the kitchen to make the cake presentable as Eleanor enters the room, relieved to find her daughter home. Merida gives her the cake as a false peace offering, and Eleanor eats a piece, then suddenly starts feeling sick. She escorts Eleanor to her chambers and puts her in her bed. Eleanor rustles and moves around uncomfortably until she emerges, now a black bear. Merida is horrified at the spell's effect and with her brother's help gets Eleanor out of the castle. They journey back to the witch's cottage but find her gone. Then they find the witch's cauldron with a ghostly image of the witch in the potion-controlled automated voice message telling Merida that she has until the second sunrise to break the spell or her mother will remain a bear forever. The witch tells Merida that the way to do it was to remember the riddle, fate be changed, look inside, mend the bond torn by pride. Baffled, Merida accidentally sabotages the cottage, so Merida and Eleanor take shelter in the remains of the cottage for the night. Merida has a dream about a memory of herself as a child with Eleanor as they both are singing Noble Maiden Fair together. The next morning, Eleanor brings some berries and water for breakfast. Merida explains that the berries are poisonous nightshade berries and the water has worms in it. They go to a creek where Merida teaches her mother to catch fish, and they both start bonding. Then Eleanor heads into the forest and Merida follows her but is mentally a bear. She nearly attacks Merida until she regains her composure. Merida is confused until they see a trail of will-o'-the-wisps and follow them to the ruins of a castle. She falls through the floor into a throne room and realizes it was the kingdom from the story Eleanor was telling her about. Merida sees a stone with 3 figures and a split stone with the 4th figure and realizes that the curse had happened before, when the prince sought to change his fate, resulting in the kingdom's downfall and his transformation to Mordu. Then she sees Mordu and he attacks her until she barely escapes with Eleanor's help and they flee back to the Ring of Stones. Merida realizes that Eleanor will become like Mordu forever and lose her human sentience, and fixates on repairing the tapestry she sundered as the way to mend the bond torn by pride, in hopes that it will break the transformation spell. That night, they sneak back into the castle. Peeking into the Great Hall, they see Fergus and the lords behind barricades hurling weapons at each other on the brink of war. That's when Merida realizes that the kingdom will be torn apart if she does not set it right, and she tries to tell Eleanor to stop them, but Eleanor in bear form cannot do any such thing and it is up to Merida to stop the madness. Eleanor, fearful of being seen and attacked, freezes into a stationary position while Merida walks into the room and tells them that she was in conference with Eleanor. The lords demand to see the queen until Merida silences them all. She tells them of the story of the selfish prince who brought chaos to the land, and reminds them that legends are lessons, and they ring with truths. The clans had been enemies until they were threatened by the northern invaders and joined forces to defend their lands. When they won the war, the clans made Fergus their king for bringing them together and made an alliance. Merida then admits that what she had done was selfish and must amend her mistake. She tells them that she and the sons should all be free to follow their hearts and find their own loves. The Lord's sons agree with this and confess to their fathers that they did not want to fight over a girl who doesn't want any of it. So they all agree, but Merida notices a guard staring at Eleanor's frozen pose and distracts everyone by telling them to go to the cellar to celebrate. When everyone is gone, Eleanor is proud of her and they both head to the tapestry room. As Merida is looking for thread and needles to mend the tapestry, Eleanor turns wild again and attacks Merida. When Fergus enters the room, she attacks him and cuts Merida's arm. When Eleanor snaps out of it, Merida tries to calm her, but her mother flees in horror as Merida tries to tell Fergus that the bear is Eleanor, but Fergus refuses to listen. He locks her in the tapestry room for protection and gives the key to the servant Maudie, while he and the lords go after Eleanor. Merida starts crying again and calls out until her brothers show up, but they too have been turned into bears for eating of the cursed cake. She tells them to get the key. They release Merida and all 4 ride on Angus while Merida frantically sews up the tapestry. They follow a trail of will-o'-the-wisps to where Eleanor was captured. Merida fights Fergus to keep him from killing Eleanor until he is convinced when 3 bear cubs help stop him and realizes that they are his sons. Suddenly, Mordu appears and attacks the soldiers and Fergus. He attempts to eat Merida until Eleanor breaks free from the ropes. She saves Merida just in time and starts fighting Mordu. After slamming Eleanor into one of the stones, he turns to kill Merida, who is holding up a spear against him, until Eleanor pulls him back and smashes him against a cracked menhir, which then crushes him to death. A wisp of something rising from his body reveals the image of the prince, who nods to them as if in acknowledgement and gratitude, and then turns into a will-o'-the-wisp himself. As the sun starts to come up, Merida realizes it is the second sunrise. She grabs the tapestry and throws it around Eleanor, but realizes nothing is happening, much to her shock and sadness. Thinking she has failed, she tearfully hugs her mother. Merida sincerely apologizes for everything, admitting it is her fault, and says that she loves her, thereby mending the actual bond torn by pride, the bond between them as mother and daughter, moments before the rays of the second sunrise touch them. She feels a human hand stroke her hair and realizes that the spell has been broken and Eleanor is human again. Fergus comes and hugs his wife and daughter and kisses Eleanor. Eleanor reminds her husband that she is naked under the tapestry, and Fergus tells the lords not to look as the triplets, also human once again, come running naked and hugging their parents and elder sister. Later, Merida and Eleanor are sewing a new tapestry together, of Merida and Eleanor as a bear, until they are called to the docks to say goodbye to the lords. Then they both ride on their horses and journey around Scotland, their mother-daughter relationship and bond even stronger and closer now. Moana. Moana is first seen as a toddler being told an ancient story about the legendary demigod Maui. According to Grandma Tala, the dramatic storyteller, Maui stole the coveted heart of Te Fiti centuries before their time. As a result, a lava demon known as Te Kā was born, and the world was plunged into slow-burning darkness. The only hope for humanity lies in the hands of a fearless hero who must journey to find Maui and have him return the heart to its rightful place. While the other children are terrified by the story, Moana is captivated. Chief Tui claims that there is no such darkness consuming the world and stresses the law that forbids anyone on the island from traveling past the reef. Moana fails to heed her father's words and waddles to the ocean shores in bliss. There, she helps a struggling newborn sea turtle make its way to the ocean against predators. Just then, Moana is acquainted with the ocean, which reveals itself to have a mind of its own. Having witnessed her purity with the baby sea turtle, the ocean grows fond of Moana and chooses her as the heroine destined to save the world. It provides her with the heart of Te Fiti, but when Tui arrives and takes her back to the village, Moana drops the heart and leaves it at the shore. Tui notices his daughter's love for the sea, and over the years, he and the people of Motunui try to convince Moana that their island home is a paradise, and that her destiny is to follow in her father's footsteps by becoming chief. Though she loves her people, Moana continues to feel drawn to the sea, something Tala encourages. One day, Tui takes Moana to a sacred place on the island, a high mountain where chiefs from every generation place a stone to signify the start of their leadership. This inspires Moana to finally accept her role as soon-to-be chief of the village. She thusly spends her time learning under her parents on how to assist her people across the island. One day, the island's supply of food begins to die out. Moana believes that traveling beyond the reef to find food elsewhere is the best solution, but Tui strongly forbids it. She nevertheless tries against his wishes and nearly drowns before she can even make it past the barriers. Believing she's failed as a sailor, Moana declares that she is not fit for the sea and wishes to place her stone on the mountain. She tells this to Tala, who responds by showing Moana a hidden cave created by their ancestors long ago. Moana learns that she's drawn to the sea because her ancestors were voyagers. When asked why their voyaging stopped, Tala explains that it was Maui's doing, referring to his crime of stealing Te Fiti's heart, which filled the seas with monsters and demons. Tala reveals to have the heart of Te Fiti in her possession and explains that the ocean chose Moana to restore it. Not knowing how to sail, Moana rushes to Tui and her people to ask for their assistance in restoring the heart. Once again, Tui forbids leaving the island, ignores her, and throws the heart away. As Moana recovers it, she finds Tala's walking stick on the grass. Moana and her parents rush to the medics where Tala lies on her deathbed. She encourages Moana to find Maui and restore the heart with her last ounce of breath. Moana reluctantly accepts her grandmother's dying wish, packs supplies, and takes one of her ancestors' boats that unknowingly had her rooster friend, Heihei, aboard as well. As Moana leaves, her grandmother's light fades out, and her spirit guides Moana past the reef and into the seas. The following night, the ocean carries Moana to Maui's island, where the two meet and fail to see eye to eye. Maui is more concerned with the sight of Moana's boat, which he steals by trapping Moana in a cave. She manages to use her wits to escape and makes it to Maui with the help of the ocean. She orders him to return the heart, But upon seeing it, Maui tries to leave the boat, only to be brought back by the ocean. He claims the heart is cursed, something Moana refuses to believe until they fall under attack by a band of pirates called the Kakamora. The Kakamora crave the heart of Te Fiti's power, but Moana stands her ground and fights back. She successfully recovers the heart and defeats the pirates. Though Maui commends her on surviving, he still refuses to help return the heart. Moana persuades him to comply when she claims that such an act will help Maui regain a positive reputation amongst mortals. Maui agrees to help, but not without his fishhook, which is said to be in the clutches of Tamatoa, a giant crab living in Lalotai, the realm of the monsters. As they make their way, Moana watches intently as Maui proves himself to be a master wayfinder. She asks him to teach her, and after he refuses at first, the ocean uses one of the Kakamora's blow darts to numb the demigod, leaving him unable to sail. With no other choice, he teaches Moana how to wayfind. After much mentoring, Moana falls asleep and has a nightmare, in which she watches as her home and parents are destroyed by Te Kā's curse. When she awakens, she finds that Maui has taken over the boat and has successfully led them to Lalotai's island. As they climb a mountain to reach the entrance to the underworld, Maui questions why the ocean chose Moana to save the world, though she doesn't seem to know herself. Despite her sudden feeling of self-doubt, Moana follows Maui into Lalotai. She evades several monsters, one of which tried to eat her, until eventually finding Tamatoa's lair and the fishhook adhered to Tamatoa's shell. Moana distracts Tamatoa long enough for Maui to take back his hook, but the demigod finds that his shape-shifting abilities are out of whack. Feeling powerful, Tamatoa attacks Maui and imprisons Moana to prevent her from interfering. As she watches helplessly, Tamatoa taunts Maui on his hidden insecurities and alludes to a tragic past. As such information was previously unknown to her, Moana is confused by Tamatoa's words. She nevertheless escapes her cell while Tamatoa is distracted and uses a makeshift duplicate of Te Fiti's heart to drive the crab's attention away from Maui. The two escape, and once they have reached safety, Maui thanks Moana for her actions, though he berates himself for failing to defeat Tamatoa and almost letting Moana be killed as a result. They set sail once more, but a down-on-his-luck Maui feels unable to defeat Te Kā and restore the heart without his hook. Moana, wanting to get to the root of Maui's self-doubt, tries to uncover the demigod's backstory. This only angers Maui, which prompts Moana to confess her own feelings of self-doubt by revealing she's unsure why the ocean chose her. She further explains that she pushes herself regardless in order to save her dying island, though she can only do so with Maui's help. Moana offers to lend an ear for the demigod, and Maui eventually opens up to her by revealing that he was born a human and was abandoned by his parents. After being adopted by the gods, he became a hero and protected mankind to earn the love he was denied by his parents. Maui admits that he feels worthless without his hook, but Moana sees a true hero in the demigod, regardless of his magical attributes. This resonates with Maui and gives him the courage to train in order to recover his power under the guidance of Moana and Mini Maui, Maui's sentient tattoo. Simultaneously, Maui furthers Moana's mentoring and wayfinding, eventually turning her into a master navigator on par with her ancestors, though Maui contends that she may have surpassed them. It's eventually decided that they're ready to face Te Kā. Maui encourages Moana to utilize her skills and sail the rest of the way, and with the demigod's teachings in mind, Moana makes it to Te Fiti, much to the delight of a prideful Maui. Maui then takes the heart and flies to Te Fiti, but he is immediately attacked by Te Kā and quickly defeated. Landing back on the boat, Maui urges Moana to turn back for their own safety, but Moana refuses, unwilling to back away after coming so close to accomplishing her goal. She sails them towards Te Fiti and straight into Te Kā's reach. The lava monster strikes down to kill Moana, but Maui intervenes and uses his fishhook to block Te Kā's blow. The wave created by the powerful impact drives Moana and Maui far from Te Fiti's shores. After they recover, Maui confronts Moana on her recklessness, which severely damaged his fishhook. Believing the ocean chose wrong in Moana as the world's savior, Maui refuses to return to Te Kā, instead suggesting that they part ways as all hope is lost with his fishhook in such critical condition. Leaving Moana sad and upset, Moana stands her ground at the thought of backing down and tearfully tries to force Maui to stay, only to be met with rejection as the demigod uses some of his remaining power to shapeshift into a hawk and fly off into the night. Sad and alone, Moana is approached by the ocean. She mournfully confesses to her incompetence and demands that the ocean choose someone else to restore the heart. The ocean accepts Moana's decision and takes the heart of Te Fiti back into the sea. As Moana breaks down in tears, she is visited by Grandma Tala's spirit, who comforts and apologizes to her granddaughter for placing so much pressure on her. Tala encourages Moana to return home if she wishes to, promising to remain by her side on the journey back. Moana prepares herself to sail home, but finds that she cannot bring herself to actually do so. Unable to understand, Tala encourages Moana to open up to her emotions to understand why she feels hesitant to return home. Moana comes to realize that the everlasting love she holds for her people in the sea is what brought her so far, is what ultimately defines who she is, and explains why she's the one capable of saving the world. Encouraged, Moana dives into the sea and retrieves the heart of Te Fiti. When she resurfaces, Tala is gone, but Moana's determination is now stronger than ever. She repairs her boat and travels back to Te Fiti with Heihei by her side. They confront Te Kā, whom Moana manages to outsmart in order to make it past Te Fiti's barrier islands. Unfortunately, Te Kā eventually catches on and attacks. Moana is thrown off her boat and nearly killed by the lava demon until Maui returns with a change of heart. Determined to defend Moana despite the damaged state of his fishhook, Maui distracts Te Kā while the ocean helps Moana to Te Fiti's now molten shores. There, Moana cannot find the spiral in which the heart is to be placed. Looking out into the distance, she notices a glowing spiral on Te Kā's chest and quickly comes to the realization that the lava demon is Te Fiti. Just as Te Kā is about to finish Maui off, Moana uses the heart to get her attention as she tells the ocean to clear a path. When she confronts Te Kā, she then sings "Know Who You Are" in the moment of certain doom. The song tames Te Kā, who finds peace in Moana's inspiring words and turns herself into molten rock. Moana places the heart into Te Kā's chest, and the lava monster's body crumbles away, reviving the radiant and lush Te Fiti. The goddess revives the dying islands across the world, as well as Moana's boat and Maui's fishhook. Moana asks Maui to return home with her, but Maui warmly denies, instead showing Moana a new tattoo on his body inspired by her heroism. The two warmly embrace before Maui shapeshifts into a hawk and flies off. Shortly afterward, Moana and Heihei sail for Motunui. They arrive just as Motunui recovers from the curse entirely. Tui and Sina spot Moana arriving home and lovingly greet her. With her deed having restored the safety of the sea, Moana becomes chief, and the people of the village bring out their ancestors' boats. Voyaging starts again, and Moana makes her mark of leadership on Motunui's sacred mountain with a seashell given to her by the ocean, symbolizing the unity of her duties to her people and her passion for the seas. Moana interacts with the ocean back on her home island of Motunui. She is interrupted by Maui, who tried teaching her to command it instead. This leads to Maui getting humiliated by the ocean while trying to fish, much to Moana and Minnie Maui's amusement. After his ego is completely deflated, Moana then returns the fish, intended to be Maui's lunch, to the ocean as she corrects him on her name, leading Maui to being thrown to the sky by the ocean through a geyser. Raya. Raya first appears in her youth, tested by her father for the role of the guardian of the dragon gem, which gives the powers of Sisu and protects Heart from the Droon. She successfully passes and earns the title. Chief Benja invites the Tail, Talon, Spine, and Fang lands to join in a feast. During the party, Raya befriends Princess Namaari of the Fangland. They immediately bond and form a close friendship due to their shared interest in dragons. Namaari gives Raya a dragon-shaped pendant. In return, Raya reveals to Namaari the hidden location of the dragon gem, only to be ultimately betrayed by her. The other nations soon arrive at their location and fight over the orb. As a result, the dragon gem is shattered into 5 broken pieces and awakens the Droon. During the evacuation, Raya has trouble carrying her injured father to safety. Knowing they won't make it, Benja sacrifices himself to give Raya a piece of the orb and throws her off of the bridge into the river below. As she falls, Raya is forced to watch her father get turned into a stone statue by the devouring plague, and can only scream as the current drifts her away. 6 years later, Raya is venturing across the Tail Land, hoping to find Sisu, the last living dragon who can help her save Kumandra and restore her father. After searching from river to river, Raya comes across an old shipwreck at the very end of the land. She places offerings and succeeds in awakening the water dragon from her long slumber. Sisu agrees to help her find the remaining pieces of the dragon gem. Raya and Sisu travel on tuk-tuk to the home of the Tailland's chief. Raya successfully avoids all of the traps placed within and carefully removes a gem piece from the remains of the chief who died to her own traps. Namaari arrives with her family, and the trio quickly escapes to a boat called the Shrimporium, owned by a boy named Boone. The group then heads to the Talon land. Arriving at Talon, Raya encounters a Khan baby named Noi and her Unjis who steal the gem fragments. She chases the thieves throughout the market and eventually catches up to them. With their help, Raya is able to infiltrate the home of Talon's chief, Danghai. She accidentally mistakes him for another person and finds out he is already long gone with a new chief in his place. The new chief tricks Sisu to be stuck with the Droon if she does not reveal the location of the other dragon gem pieces. Raya arrives on the scene, snatches a gem piece from the chief, and rescues Sisu. They return to Boone's boat with Noi and her Unjis and head to the Spineland. At the Spineland, Raya and Sisu are captured by a formidable giant named Tong, the lone survivor of his people. When Namaari and her army arrive at the front gates, Raya pleads with Tong to take her friends to safety while she buys them time with the enemies. Her friends follow the plan while she fights Namaari. The Fang Princess gains the upper hand during the fight and is about to finish Raya until Sisu jumps in and saves her life. Raya finally reveals Sisu's secrets to her friends back on the boat, and they agree to work together to get the final piece of the dragon gem from the Fangland. Raya originally plans for the team to sneakily infiltrate the kingdom, but she is persuaded to follow Sisu's plan of befriending Namaari. She decides to return Namaari's pendant as a gift and tells her to secretly meet her in the forest via letter. For the night, Raya shares a meal with all of her friends. The next morning, Namaari meets with Raya as promised and presents the final piece of the dragon gem, but is betrayed again when her old friend pulls out a crossbow. Raya is unable to stop Namaari from firing an arrow at Sisu, killing her. Blinded by rage, Raya heads to Fang alone and confronts Namaari. Upon defeating her, Raya realizes her rage and lack of trust cause chaos in Kumandra and Sisu's death. Instead, she spares Namaari's life and leaves to help her friends evacuate Fang's citizens away from the Droon. With the gem's pieces starting to lose power and the Droon spreading closer, Raya decides to take the first step. She gives her gem piece to Namaari and turns into stone. Her friends do the same and turn into stone beside Raya. Namaari makes a choice to put all the pieces together before becoming petrified as well. After the dragon gem regains its power, Raya and all the infected victims are brought back to life. With Sisu and the dragons restored to Kumandra, Raya hugs her friends before returning home. Arriving back at the Heartland, Raya reunites with her father, and the two celebrate with the other nations as Kumandra is united again. There you have it, the life of every Disney princess. Who are your favorites? Tell us in the comments below. Did you enjoy our video? Be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.